Hello? Just want to hear my voice. Just gotta wait. Yeah, there we go. We're good. Deep breath. Blow it out. After a good cry. Yeah. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Probably when I move the iPad closer to me, you'll probably hear me better. Be quiet. Less. There we go. Is that how you do it? Hopefully that worked. Oh. I'm okay. Nobody knows I'm doing it. My nose is a little runny at the moment. No worries. And should get better. We're at chapter 22. Oops, is that how you spell that name? Yeah. Probably just treat it just fine there. We're still good, correct? Ah. Spent 3 minutes on the screen when we can move. I don't know why I did that. Still good. Okay. My nose is running again. Do a little altering. Quickly move over to this screen. There's lovely thing. Try to be careful which one you click on, cause spoilers. Like, there's not that many spoilers, even if I did accidentally do something. Page numbers, page layout, I mean, yeah. I'm just trying my best to be quiet, even though I'm more quiet than you're normally more quiet. Hearing aids are louder, so, yeah. But when I think I'm quiet, I'm not usually quiet. Yeah. I also spent yesterday doing the target like impression. You'll see what that's about later. Doing this earlier, just in case if Tempe does stream later, it will still be alright. I got at least an hour. But he said he might not, so if he doesn't, it's still fine. I can get as far as I can, and maybe, if we're lucky, we can finish the book. And then we just need to do short stories, which will definitely be in video form. But that's how I do it. This was literally like my last try. And then I was just gonna do video recordings. I have to be quiet. It's like I don't wanna not do it now. Or I could just move. This is too comfy. It's like I could move up to my bed if I really wanted to. It would be so loud. Not next to the vent. But the problem is, like, yeah, it does feel like I closed it off because there's no cool breeze. Okay. Doesn't feel like air conditioning. Just gonna assume, but still be quiet anyway, just in case. Chapter 14. Be careful not to scroll too fast. Use this, but I'm just nervous so you can see something you should see it. I can see it eventually. You just won't see it just this moment. 20. I got through 20 and 21 in the last one. Most of it though was just talking, which I don't mind. It's just like, yeah, if people want to join in, people can join in. It's just, yeah, streaming this usually does better because back in the day, before I had almost 200 subscribers, I still have 175. The videos only did half as well as the actual streams, which was why I usually streamed, because there were many people who were interested in the video of me reading each chapter. So if you want to see that, let me know. If you'd rather see videos rather than streams, but you gotta make sure you watch those videos, because yeah, you'll miss stuff. Yeah. And you definitely don't want to miss stuff. Yeah. Well, we should probably get started, and people can come in as they go. You can definitely watch this back in VOD. If you're watching it back in VOD, hello. If you're having a nice morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're seeing this. Yes, I know it's early, but I'd rather do it early than not at all. Because it'll give me a chance to do this. Of course, I'm not doing voice impressions because I've already done a very low voice. Oh yeah. If Mr. A and RJ do show up, I may or may not do their voice correctly. Don't worry about it. So, you know. Chapter 22. A couple of hours passed since the cat had learned that the boy had gone to his friend's world to see what had happened. Stampy wasn't sure how long it would be before the boy returned, but he hoped it would be soon. He even sent William to wait for the boy by the portal to make sure he returned to the house safely. And yet, the thought of not knowing what was going on scared him. The cat sat in his bedroom quietly, looking out the window from time to time, hoping he would see the boy and the beaver walking back to the house. Even though he knew that the boy was taking big risks to do this, it also unnerved him to know that anything could happen to either the boy or him in his absence. He lay out alongside. He tried to keep the unwelcome thoughts from his mind. He didn't know what the men were doing with his friends, or what they were planning, but he did know that Sam wouldn't let anything happen if he had anything to say about it. Sure, Jimmy was resting comfortably now in the guest room, making it easier to make sure everyone was safe. Still wasn't sure what to make of all the things that were going on at that moment. But the cat's thoughts were interrupted when he heard a whine from Barnaby. The cat looked down at the dog, a little curious by the dog's sudden reaction. "What is it, boy?" The dog barked, wagging its tail, and stood up and went over to the cat. Debbie managed to smile and pat the dog on the head. You just wanted attention, didn't you? The dog barked again, nudging the cat's hand or paw. As the cat chuckled, Debbie pat the dog's head gently, not minding the company that came with it. With Barnaby by his side, he knew that he would be fine. The dog wouldn't let anything happen to him after the incidents that had occurred a very good while ago. The cat wouldn't have it any other way. When do you think Sam will get back? The cat asked, as the last ray of sunlight disappeared from the sky, not able to think of anything besides the boy. He was reasonably worried, not for his own sake, but for the boy's. The boy could be putting himself in unknown danger by getting involved or trying to find the others, even though the boy and his friends were willing to risk everything to protect him. He felt that it didn't seem fair. There had to be plenty of people out there who were faced by similar issues, and had no one to turn to. That was that thought. Cat sat there in silence, his mind wandering as he tried to think about what he could do while he waited. He knew Squishy had to be nearby, maybe at Polly's house, doing something with her, or in the music tower with Fiddy, where Fiddy hung out, having fun with him. He couldn't be sure what his friend was doing. For now, he needed to know that everything was alright, or at least as good as it could have been. The dog whined again, nudging the cat's paw. I used the right word this time. As the cat realized that he had stopped petting the dog. The cat swallowed as he lowered his paw, hesitant to continue. His mind was just too preoccupied, too wrapped up in the fears that he knew were possible. After all, he'd seen one of his worst enemies kill one of his closest friends, all because he was on his way to fulfilling his goal of destroying the cat. Yeah, spell check. He was in his way. Wow, okay. Steffi shuddered as he tried to push the image away, but it wasn't the only thing that kept coming back. He couldn't help but think about the fate that Mr. A felt he deserved. First with the shock collar, from which he had been rescued from, and from the awful torture he had endured. Also being saved from certain death. Could he really get away from that man forever? Gerald? Could he ever escape his fate, which those men thought he deserved? What did he deserve anyway? The cat let out a long sigh, looking out the window again, hoping to see the boy walking with William back to his home. To know that he was okay, even if he didn't bring good news. It wasn't just the fact that he wanted to make sure the boy was okay, but that he would be able to rest knowing he hadn't made a mistake going after him. Something had gone wrong. The cat closed his eyes as he took another breath, slow and steady, as he tried to remember just how capable the boy was. How strong and smart he was. He would have gone if he didn't think someone wouldn't be there to help him if anything went wrong. The cat had the helpers. He had Squishy. He even had his dogs to protect him. But he felt safer knowing the boy was only one call away, knowing there was someone he could trust, and everything else seemed hopeless. He needed a friend, whether it was Sam or Squishy, or even Barnaby. He would take it. It's hard to imagine just how much happened in such a short span of time, the cat admitted out loud at last to the dog. He opened his eyes and looked up at the night sky, the stars starting to appear one by one. It looked beautiful, and yet he was hesitant to go out there and see it for himself. It was too risky, especially if the men were waiting for a chance to get to him. He certainly didn't want to make it too easy. The cat whined. The dog whined again, putting his snout on the bed. As he looked up at his master, the cat smiled sadly down at the dog, his mind full of things he'd rather not think about. Anything was possible with those men. Mr. A could do just about anything. The cat wasn't sure he'd be able to stop him. But his mind was interrupted when the dog's casual whine turned into a low growl, making the cat start back in surprise. It was a subtle noise, a warning. The cat looked over to the balcony, climbing out of bed as he slowly began to go to the door that led into his house. Barnaby, what is it? The cat asked seriously, as the dog eyed the balcony suspiciously. A look of rage and hunger in his eyes. Certainly wasn't anything he'd ever seen from the dog. Suddenly, a shadow could be seen dropping down onto the balcony. Cat couldn't see who the figure was, because it was so dark, but he could see them turn to the door, opening it slowly. That man, the dog growled, but that made the dog growl louder, more intensely. Stay back, Barnaby, Cat warned, debating whether he should grab Barnaby by the collar or just run. Whoever this person was had quite the nerve in coming. Before the cat could make a decision, the door opened, and a man in a black uniform stepped into the room, looking around casually, wary of the angry dog that was threatening to lunge at him. The cat recognized the uniform, tensing as he watched the man's eyes meet his own. I'm surprised the dog didn't attack me right away, the man mused with a smile. Probably good on your part, I might say. You may want to hear me out. What do you want? The cat asked. You know you're not welcome here. The man smiled sheepishly and shrugged. I know, but I do have a message for you. A message from my leader. About your friends. What's he done to them? The cat demanded, and the Barnaby growled even louder, teeth bared and ears back. Hello! Looks like everybody's finally coming in. Yeah, I didn't schedule it. I never do. Fortunately. It seemed that the dog could feel the fear and urgency rubbing off the cat. Nothing much. Yeah. I only posted it on Twitter because I didn't want to do it on Discord and all that. Yeah. I didn't want to do it on Discord. Yeah. I was just doing it early, just in case Debbie does go live. I at least have a little bit more time and more chance to read. He might not, though, so either way, it's still fine. I just wanted to go live, so I didn't want to do it on Friday because I have a video coming up then. Yeah. Well, it's one of the only ways I get people to know that I'm doing something. Since I can only have whatever. Which bird are you speaking of? And why does that matter? You still has my friends, the cat replied. Just fill it, or I'll let my dog loose on you. I wouldn't do that if I were you, the man warned, not seeming all afraid by the cat's threat, especially if you want to see your friends again. The cat swallowed, looking over at the dog warily, before looking over at the man. And sure what else to say. The only thing he could do was either run away screaming or hear the man out. So far as the man wasn't trying to capture him or kill him. And so far, what? That's a very confusing sentence. As far as he wasn't trying to capture him or kill him, he would be okay. For now, at least, like I missed something there. They didn't catch. Alright. Good, it seems you get the point, the man said, sounding a little cheerful as he said it. Now, where should I begin? Ah, yes! You probably already know about the attacks that occurred with your friends. Of course, the cat replied. But what do you have to do in all of this? Oh, my job is pretty simple, the man said, with a casual shrug, ordered by Mr. A himself to fetch you. Fetch me? What? The cat asked. You do want to see your friends again, don't you, cat? The man asked, raising my curious eyebrow. You know I do, the cat said matter-of-factly. Well, my leader is offering you one more chance to see them before they face their fates. The fates that are planned for them, the man said with a small smile. And why would he want to do that? The cat demanded. Oh, you'll see soon enough, the man said mischievously. Now, I'm only going to tell you this, just this once. If you're willing to surrender to me now and let me take you to him, he may lessen the pain you can endure. Why would I believe you? The cat asked with disbelief. You don't have to, the man said simply. But if you could spare them even a day longer to live, would you do it? The cat swallowed, unsure what to say to that. Of course he wanted that to be the case, but he'd rather have something even better than that. What's the cost of that? The man pondered thoughtfully, keeping a wary eye on Barnaby, who didn't seem to like the fact that the man was there at all. The man even dared to go after the cat, and the dog would attack. Still, that happened. If it could help it. You'll have to find out for yourself, now won't you? The man sneered, took a step closer. The cat stepped back instinctively, putting a paw on the door. Ready to push it open and run if the man threatened to pursue. You won't win, the cat replied matter-of-factly. Trying to sound brave, Mr. A certainly won't win either. We'll find our friends and stop you. Can you be so sure of that, cat? The man asked, raising an eyebrow. Are you sure we don't have ways of getting rid of them quickly? After all, their friends certainly had to deal with plenty of damage and destruction. Many of them would have survived something like that. Cat swallowed. You don't know that. Neither do you, the man sneered. Nor will you be able to survive long enough to find out. Suddenly the man lunged at the cat, and the cat cried out as he opened the door and slammed it behind the man. The cat could hear a yelp of pain as Barnaby attacked the man, but for a moment the cat just sat there, stunned. Is this really happening? Now? When the two of his strongest helpers were nowhere near? Where was Squishy, Jimmy, the other helpers? Where could he go to hide from this man? It wouldn't even matter. After all, what would happen if the man didn't return with him? Would his friends suffer the man's failure? The cat gasped when he heard the door on the other side of the staircase open as the man charged toward him. The cat ran into the storage room, heading towards the front entrance, thought of the doghouse clear in his mind. His dog certainly would be able to keep the man back long enough for help to come, right? How long would he have to wait for? Where's Sam and William coming back? He opened the door to the front entrance, passing Gregory's tree as he went to the doghouse, his heart hammering in his chest as he ran into the room where his dogs were, the man not too far behind. The man leaped in the air and tackled the cat as the cat turned to the other exit. He had cried out as he fell to the ground. He could hear growling surrounding them as each of the dogs stood up, including Barnaby, who didn't seem too happy to see the man still pursuing his master. Call your dogs off, cat, the man hissed in the cat's ear. I suppose you could be sure you'll never see your friends again. No, the cat said, struggling against the man, who was pinning him to the ground as the dogs came closer, threatening to pounce. You can't do this. Call them off, cat, the man warned. You will face far worse consequences than your friends ever will. The cat swallowed as he hesitated, not sure if he should do what the man said. If he called off his dogs, the only hope of fending off the man was gone. But if he didn't, he might never see his friends again. The man was lying. He could be trying to use this moment to weaken him. Try to use it to make it easier for the man to get what he wanted. What Mr. A wanted. What did he really want? What did he want with him and his friends? Do it, cat. Meow, the man warned. He sounded more frantic as the circle closed in, and the cat could see the dogs ready to lunge. He doubted they would back off, even if he asked them to. You shouldn't have attacked me like this, the cat replied, much less followed me here. Very well, cat, the man sneered, as he extended a sword and stood up, swiping at the dogs, who yelped in fear. They sprung back, snarling as they kept their distance. No! The cat cried in horror. Couldn't believe what was happening. Wasn't sure what to do. Relax, I'm not going to hurt them. The man chuckled. I'm only here to bring you to Mr. A alive. The cat swallowed and the man bent down to grab him, pinning him tightly to himself, one arm as he held a sword in the other, making the dogs wary to attack. Why are you doing this? The cat asked shakily. Because this is what I've been told to do, the man mused. It's been fun seeing you here, but now we must be heading off. No, the cat said, shaking his head as he struggled. Go get help! The cat called out to the dogs as 2 or 3 disappeared, as the others watched helplessly, not wanting to risk hurting their master, since the end was so close. It's far too late for anyone to help you now, cat. The man sneered as he was dragged out of the doghouse. The man putting the sword away as he tightened his grip on the cat. Continued to struggle. No one will be able to stop us now. Not even your supposed friends. Swords protect you. The cat whimpered softly as he was dragged away from his house, in the direction where he knew lay a portal. Whether or not William was there, or not. There or not, he didn't know. All he knew, his friends took an entirely different route. Didn't even know he was in danger. The cat closed his eyes, not sure what else to do in this seemingly hopeless situation. Just hope that whatever Sam had found would help in their rescue. Not just his, but that of his friends as well. That's what mattered more to him in that moment. His friend's safety over his own. He just hoped help would come before it was too late. That's all he had. That was all he had. Chapter 23. And get a nice little sip of water mid-chapter. Okay. Nothing to say. Let's keep going. Chapter 23. Sam walked beside William Beaver as they headed back to the house. The lovely world at night was well lit, calm and peaceful. And the nice thing was, they hadn't yet run into any googlies that could be running around in the area. The boy looked around the area with all alertness, not surprised by the beaver's company. He had a feeling his friend would just wanted to make sure that he would go back to the house safely, and he appreciated that. The starry night sky looked especially wonderful as the moon rose higher into the sky. There was also a chill breeze in the air that came from the ocean that wasn't too far away. It was a perfect night, though the boy had many other things on his mind in that moment that he really wasn't paying that much attention to the wonder that was displayed all around him. All he could think about was getting back to the house, maybe talking and updating his friends on what he'd found, and going to bed. He could think of nothing more wonderful than a nice, warm, and soft bed, so he could feel a thought in the back of his mind, to thought otherwise. His friends didn't have that luxury right now. Perhaps they slept on hard cloths, or the floor tonight. Far cry of what he would be getting. And when he found them, he would be sure they got the chance to sleep on an actual bed. It's in the hard floor where he caught made of stone material, which was a thin cloth over it. The pathetic excuse for a bed. The two of them walked down the path for what felt like hours. He was probably only about half an hour and the boy could just about see the house up ahead. It looked just as quiet and peaceful as the rest of the area. Nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary, or out of place. He looked over at the beaver, who nodded his head, seeming to agree with the boy's unspoken words, or at least, that was what the boy assumed the beaver was reacting to. The beaver was still alert, even quickening its pace, so he could get to the house faster. Sam did not blame him. All of a sudden, as they neared the house, someone barged out of the front door, running towards them, with 2 or 3 dogs right behind them. The boy recognized the figure as Squishy, and the look on her face, in her eyes, looked frantic. Something that could... Sam, there you are! She said in relief as she ran up to them, looking around them as if expecting to see someone jump out of them. Yeah, the boy said, feeling away from any neediness to reel him. What's going on? Did something happen? She swallowed, looking over her shoulder, before and back over at 2 of them. I was just making sure Jimmy was comfortable for the night when I ran into these guys here, she sighed. Looking around again. Did you happen to see Stampy anywhere when you were walking? No. Why? The boy asked. I can't find him anywhere, she said anxiously. He's not in his room. He's nowhere in the house. I don't think these guys would be coming to me if something was wrong. How about we check the doghouse to see if we can find any clues? The boy replied, looking at William. Stay close to Jimmy. He's in the guest room. I don't want him going anywhere until I know what's going on. How does he know he's in the guest room? William probably told him. Wow. Yeah, that's weird. The beaver nodded as he ran towards the house. Squishy and the boy ran towards the doghouse, with the dogs following shortly behind. The boy entered first, looking around the quiet area. There was no cat in sight, just the dogs. The boy looked over at the duckling, seeing the worry on her face grow as she looked around. The boy noticed Barnaby not too far away, and walked over to him, kneeling to be at his level. Maybe about 30 to 36 chapters. Might be 34. I made it a little longer. You'll see why later. It's like, originally it was meant to be shorter, but I made it longer. Just to have a little interesting plot point. Boy looked over at the duckling, seeing... excuse me. Can you tell me what happened, Barnaby? The boy asked, quietly. The dog whined and looked away from the boy, disappointment and guilt on his face. Do you think? She asked, her words catching her throat. She swallowed back the overwhelming emotion inside of her. Do you think the men took him? I don't know, the boy said, looking down at the dog, who seemed to be avoiding the guy. Where is he now? The dog barked, growling gently as he looked out the way they'd come. The boy swallowed, remembering how there had been a portal in Nettie's Martin's world that had been used to send them to a different world, one of which he had coordinates to. Come on, we really don't have much time, the boy said quickly, as he stood up, heading for the exit. Where to? Duckling asked. To find the others, the boy said. I found some coordinates that I believe lead to a place where the others are being held. We might still be able to stop whatever those men are planning to do. Okay, Duckling said, hope returning in her voice. No doubt she was still shaky about the cat's disappearance, but the boy was right. If the boy was right, then they would be able to stop those men. For anyone could get seriously hurt or even killed. It didn't take long before the 2 of them arrived at where the portal had been stationed. The boy stopped before they entered the clearing, carefully making sure that there were no threats that could pop out at them. The area seemed pretty empty. The boy nodded for the all clear. Yeah. boy nodded at the all clear for the duckling as the two of them came to the portal. The boy went to the coordinates and checked it, taking out the piece of paper he found to see if it aligned perfectly. I wasn't surprised to find that it did. How did you get that? Duckling asked. You could say I hijacked the broken portal's history, the boy asked, and I recorded the most recent one. Looks like we have a match. The duckling swallowed and nodded. You don't know what we're going to find on the other side, though. Could be a trap. The boy nodded. That's why we need to be ready for anything. Yeah, she said with a nod. She looked at the brilliant white particles that emitted from the device. Do you think we can do this? Does it look like we have any other choice? The boy asked. We have to do this. Our friends need us. Stampy needs us. She swallowed and took a deep breath. You must be so scared right now. They all probably are, the boy said grimly. Who knows what Mr. A and Gerald are planning to do to them? But what about Mr. A's brother, Archie? The duckling asked. You mentioned he had a brother, right? Yeah, I never met him, but Stampy did, the boy said. I'm surprised he hasn't shown up either. Maybe Mr. A is keeping him more behind the scenes for smaller things. Maybe, Declan said. That doesn't matter right now, the boy replied matter-of-factly. Right now we have some friends to rescue. With you and that, Declan smiled. She extended her sword. The boy did the same, and they jumped through the portal, ready for just about everything. They had to be. The boy felt a slight sensation of falling as he slipped through the portal. He was in the lovely world one moment, and in the middle of the dark oak forest in another. The forest reminded him slightly of their rescue mission for Nettie a couple of months ago. Had it really been that long ago? The place looked eerie and dark, a menacing forest where the most dangerous monsters could lurk. They really needed to be on their guard, especially when it was this dark. The boy couldn't be sure if it was night or day due to the trees blocking most of the sky. Just hoped they'd be able to maneuver this and find where the men had taken their friends. Look, Tim, over here, Squishy whispered softly to the boy as she pointed over to a group of bushes. It looks to me there's a path hidden in those bushes. The boy crept closer and looked over the hedge and nodded, seeing a faint dark path leading to the darkness. Do you think it's wise to use torches? Pretty dark. It looks pretty dark. We don't want them to see us. No, I don't live in Canada. We don't want them to see us, the duckling said, shaking her head. We're going to have to stick together and be very careful. Right, the boy nodded as they headed down the path, doing their best not to stray off as the area around them seemed to grow darker and darker. I could be nice wherever I live, to be fair. Doesn't matter where I live, I can still be a nice person. All I do is live close to Canada. I just don't live in Canada. Let's just say that. I live close to it, but not quite. Like, very not quite. Like miles and miles and miles. It's like I'm still pretty far away from Canada, but I'm closer to it than I am to, like, the UK. Yeah. I'm gonna read that sentence again. Right, the boy nodded, as they headed down the path, doing their best not to stray off it, as the area around them seemed to grow darker and darker, closing in around them like a pack stalking its prey, closing in for the kill. It certainly didn't help ease the boy's nerves in the slightest. Cool. The sooner you get out of this, the better, and no doubt the duckling agreed with him. felt like hours that they had been trekking through the forest, and the boy began to wonder if there was even an end to this mass of trees. "Think we're going to get close?" Stickling asked, breaking the eerie silence and causing the boy to jump. "Sorry." "It's okay," the boy replied. "To be honest, I really don't know. It seems like we're going on forever. Hope we aren't going in circles." "We aren't," the duckling said, pointing over to a small cluster of bushes. "There's a river just over there. We haven't seen a river before yet." "Okay," boy nodded, reassured by the duckling's confidence. The boy walked through the forest some more, passing some more clusters of bushes as they followed the path until the boy could see slivers of light ahead. "I see a clearing," the boy whispered, with an edge of excitement. "Do you think that's where they are?" the duckling asked hopefully. "It has to be," the boy said confidently. Closer, he knew they were getting to the more hope and confident he felt. Maybe they could do this. Maybe they could stop those men from whatever they were planning. He just needed to know how exactly they were going to do that without getting caught, or risking their friend's safety. If they were caught, it wouldn't look good for any of them, especially if Jimmy was the only one who had some idea of where they had gone. Maybe Dan. They had only one chance. He only had one chance, and he couldn't risk blowing it. "How close do we get?" the duckling asked. "Probably to the edge of the clearing, so we can see what we're up against," the boy replied quietly. "Lead the way then," she smiled. The boy nodded as they neared the clearing. The only thought of his mind was to get in, rescue his friends, and get out. No one would be left behind. He was not stopped until he knew that everyone was safe. From Mr. A's Cheryl's clutches, he knew that was not the place. This was not the place to be in. Hopefully, he could stop the man before it was too late. The men before it was too late. They would do it together. Moving on to chapter 24. Whew. And it's 9:24. How convenient. Chapter 24. Good? Do it. Steppy was pushed down a lightly worn dirt path, one that was hard to see in the dark surroundings of the dark oak forest that surrounded them. The cat shuddered as he looked around him, the eerie silence only growing as they continued. His captor hadn't said anything throughout the journey. He'd been stripped of everything, even his iron boots, before they had entered, leaving him with nothing. No way to defend himself, no way to fight back. How could he stop these men if he had no way to protect his friends from them? The cat's thoughts were interrupted when he spotted a sliver of light ahead. Was the end of the forest? Just a clearing within the eerie and dark place. Normally he didn't mind dark oak trees, but the last few times that the men had used them still made him feel slightly uneasy. This was certainly something he wasn't used to. The man pushed him harder down the path, quickening his pace as he did so. Cat stumbled as he struggled to keep up, tripping over tree roots and other things that were scattered along the path. Why did this place make him feel so uneasy, so frightened? He felt quite ominous, and he couldn't understand why. They made it to the edge of the clearing as they had shine. The cat, stunned by its brightness, clearly it wasn't his world anymore. He knew that it had been turning night when he'd been taken out of his world. The day couldn't have gone by that fast, could it? After the cat blinked away the brightness, he realized that there was one big building in the heart of the clearing. It was a smaller section of the building that the cat assumed had to be the prisons or cells his friends had been kept in. The bigger part of the building seemed to be where they were headed. Standing by the doorway was another man in Mr. A's typical uniform. The man nodded silently as the cat's captor letting them in the building. not saying a word. The absence of men unnerved the cat. They hiding in shadows, keeping watch of their prisoners, looking for more victims. He didn't have time to think about these things as he was pushed down a long hallway, where he could see a dark oak door, similar to the ones he'd seen the first time he'd met Mr. A and his brother RJ. When he had been tortured, it was a shock collar, nearly dying because of it. The second time was when he was trying to rescue his sister from Gerald, who was trying to use her to lure him into his trap. He'd failed, of course, but it still wasn't something pleasant to remember. Once they made it to the end of the hallway, the man paused, as if hesitating over opening the door. Best cooperate, Cat, the man finally said simply. You know that this time people could get hurt, and you don't want that. And why would you care? The cat demanded. I'd hold your tongue as well, the man warned. Say smile. You really don't want to know. Just help him, Mr. A could be. The cat swallowed. It could be worse than a shock collar or being tortured with a red-hot coal. A lot of things, Cat, the man said. You saw what happened to your squid friend. We won't hesitate to make that suffering far worse. Yeah. I've had other torturing ideas. They're pretty dark. They can be pretty dark. The cat swallowed again, not sure what to make of what the man said. Why would he care to warn him about these things? Was he trying to scare him? Get him to submit to his fate, like any humble victim would? Would he even do that? What would he do anyway? The man opened the door, pushing the cat inside. The cat's questions halted as soon as he saw the man standing across the room. His back towards him. He knew who it was, without any doubt. The man had caused him so much pain and torment in the past few months. The cat couldn't imagine why the man believed that he could keep going, even with defeat. He was determined to kill, destroy him, destroy all of the YouTubers. And nothing would change that. All the hurt, destruction his kind had done to him, sort of revenge that would turn heads away in disgust. Mr. A turned to face them. A smile on his face as he met eyes with the cat. Well, hello there, Step Cat. The cat shuddered again as the man said his name. It was a distaste and hatred running down the man's lips that made the name feel bitter, cold, not worth it, useless. You don't seem too happy to see me now, the man mused with a smile as he turned to the cat's captor. You know what to do. Bring him to me and go get the prisoners, quickly. Yes, sir, the man nodded as he dragged the cat in front of the man, forcing him to his knees, facing away from the man. The cat watched as the man in the uniform walked out of the room, leaving him alone with Mr. A, taking the opportunity to walk around the cat, so he was facing him. I'm sure you're wondering why you're here, aren't you? The man asked casually. What have you done to my friends? The cat demanded. Nothing much, yet, the man said with a shrug. The guards certainly had fun teasing them, though. He chuckled at the cat. He smiled. I was just waiting for you to arrive. Now, you're finally here. Why do you want me so badly? The cat asked. I think you know the answer to that, cat. The man sneered. 2 times now you've escaped me. You escaped Gerald's opportunity to finish you, and your friends as well. You suffer for it. How? The cat asked with uncertainty. The man straightened, straight-faced, and said, You'll see soon enough. Gerald gave me quite the idea, and I decided to let him decide your friend's fate. It's fair that I made him wait this long. Can't imagine how eager he was to finally do something that would affect you after he saw what you went through with your squid friend. Good luck with that one. His name was Squid, the cat snapped. Not that it matters to you. It doesn't, the man said with a smirk. But I appreciate the clarification. The cat swallowed as he heard the door open and looked up to see 4 bound prisoners walking to the room, being pushed along by 4 guards. Gerald right behind them all. Put them by the wall, Gerald ordered, as the men. To be fair, once you figure it out, it'll be pretty obvious. I've said it before. Gerald ordered the men, and the cat watched. Each of his friends were each looking at the floor. None of them seemed to be too badly hurt. Stacy and Lizzie certainly looked paler and thinner, probably because they'd been in prison for far longer. "Oh," the cat whispered, his voice catching as he watched the 4 men walk out of the room, leaving Gerald standing by the prisoners. The cat looked over at each one, neither of whom dared to look up. "It's good to see everyone here," the man said. Mr. A said, standing very close to the cat as he said it. His tone was simple and crisp. But when the prisoners refused to look up at him, he cleared his throat. "I recommend you look at me when I'm speaking to you, YouTubers." Cat watched in pained silence as his friends raised their heads slowly, a mix of brown, green, and blue eyes looking at him. And then, to the man that had spoken, he could see the sadness and uncertainty in their eyes. He could never have imagined he would see them again like this. They all looked so alone and vulnerable, and made him want to stand up and defend them. The men who had threatened them. The men who wanted to destroy them. And again, he was in the exact same situation they were in. "Good. Very good," the man said with a nod. "Now, where were we? Yes. I am welcoming you all here for what we're planning to do for you all." So he looked over at Gerald and gave him a quick nod. "Want to take it from here, Gerald?" "Gladly," the man said as he looked down at the prisoners, starting to walk in front of them, unnerving the cat deep down, and he got his sister's eyes. They looked hopeful, sad but hopeful, and perhaps there was a little bit of fear. I don't know why I said hopeful. The cat knew that Gerald knew that she was close to him. The man knew how much his sister meant to him, especially when he'd risked his own safety to try to help her. Fear and anger filled him. He wanted to do something, but he felt so outnumbered, so weak compared to the might and power those men seemed to have over them. The cat watched as the man paced a few more times. His sister went. His eyes looking at the cat before stopping. "I believe the best way to make sure that we get to the best of destroying our greatest threat is to force him to see each and every one of his friends are eliminated." "No!" the cat cried, as he saw his friends squirm slightly against the restraints. Whose threat the man had given them only days before resounded back, given him into his mind. There was no escaping fate. Now his friends were entangled in their well. This just wasn't fair. Gerald smiled coldly at the cat's reaction. The cat's friends. But the question is, who should go first? "Make it quick, Gerald," Mr. A said quickly. "We don't want to waste time for the cat's ultimate fate." The cat shook his head as tears filled his eyes, seeing his friends look so frightened there. Seeing the man moving over them scared him even more than anything. He couldn't do anything to stop it. He was helpless. He couldn't save his friends. He couldn't even save himself. "What's the rush?" Gerald asked curiously, tilting his head. "No one will be able to stop us. They don't even know where to look. Besides, I want these friends of his to suffer as much as possible. Starting with this one." The cat gasped as the man grabbed for the bush baby. Hearing her cry of surprise, Martin struggled, demanding him to let her go. Oh boy, this guy's not helping. The man smiled at the cat, ignoring the YouTuber, as he held the bush baby to himself, extending a sword. She struggled. The cat could see fear in her eyes. Its tears formed in his own. Please, Gerald, the cat pleaded. You can't. I can't. The man wheezed with his mouth. She's very close to you, isn't she? Perhaps closer to you than you were with that friend of yours that I got in my way. She's that close, and shouldn't we be doing her last? Mr. A asked skeptically. He won't forget this moment, sir, Gerald said darkly, forcing the bush baby closer, stopping her from struggling. The blade was aimed at her throat. I don't lie. Oh, the cat said shakily, feeling Mr. A's eyes on him, perhaps watching and observing his reaction. Did you have a point? The man smiled at Gerald before looking at the cat. Perhaps we can make an exchange, cat? What do you mean? And why do you think I live in Michigan? That was your first asked question. I'm not confirming it yet. But why do you think it's Michigan? You'd do anything to keep her safe, wouldn't you? The man said, not waiting. Ah, you do know where I live. Located in Grand Rapids. That is true. The school I was at was located in Grand Rapids. But that doesn't mean I'm in Grand Rapids. I'm just in Michigan. Somewhere in Michigan. Hi. You are right. Angela, yeah. Exactly. Hey, yo. You do anything to keep her safe. Wouldn't you? The man said, not waiting for an answer as he continued. So perhaps you are willing to give up your life, or that of one of your other friends, to spare her a few more precious hours? Days, if I feel like it. The cat shook his head. I can't. And why not? The man asked. The cat swallowed, shaking his head, not really sure how he could explain the pain and fear he felt. He'd undoubtedly laid down his own life to protect his sister, especially if it meant she had a better chance of being rescued, but would it be worth it? He didn't trust the man to keep his word. The man would certainly destroy her like he would to him eventually. But as he watched Gerald holding her tightly, with an angry Martin right behind him, and equally angered and frightened Stacy and Lizzie alongside him, he wondered if he really could do this. What if none of this truly mattered yet? What if it all was for nothing? You have a choice, cat, the man said coldly. Mr. A said coldly, eyeing Gerald cautiously. Otherwise, all you will hear is your little friend scream, which is dumpless. Oh, the cat shook his head. You won't win. See about that, the man said with a small smile as he looked over at Gerald. Any final thoughts to say? Where do I begin? The man asked, dark grin, tightening his grip on the bush babe. The cat could hear her gasp in pain as she squirmed weakly. Stand, she whimpered, just loud enough for the cat to hear. Her small, but the cat could hear her desperation in her voice. Would they ever get out of this alive? Would she? He didn't know. Hold on, the cat said, just as softly. Her eyes filled with tears, just as understanding filled them. The cat repeated the words, wanting to believe them himself. Help had to be coming, despite the men's claims. He wouldn't win. He couldn't. He would get out of this. The fans would get out of this. They had to. There's no other way. Hope was all they had left. 25. Another sip of water. I'm thirsty. Sam walked down the hallway with Squishy, managing to avoid being detected by anyone as they sneaked in. However, he had a feeling it would be a little more difficult for them to sneak out, especially if there was an alarm. So what do you suggest we do when we get in there? I don't even know what we'll find, the duckling told the boy, looking uncertain as she glanced to the closed door they were approaching from the hallway. There's only two of them, and several of us, the boy replied. If we can find a way to free our friends, then these men will have a chance. I really hope you're right, the duckling said with a sigh. They were now only a few feet from the door, and the boy noticed the duckling hesitate for a slight moment. Is everything all right? The boy asked. Yeah, she said, taking a deep breath as she said it. I have to be. The boy smiled as she said, You can do this, Squishy. Trust me. I do, she replied. It's just what Stampy told me about those men. I've stopped them from hurting Stampy before, the boy replied. I have no doubt we can do that again. She nodded. Okay. They arrived at the door, and the boy put his ear to it, hearing muffled voices on the other side. He looked over at the duckling and gave her a slight nod. Ready for this? The boy asked. She extended her sword and smiled hopefully. As ready as I'll ever be. The boy nodded as he opened the door quietly, peeking in to see what was going on. Standing across the room was Mr. A, who was standing beside a round cat, and the expression they could see was that of fear. Then he noticed why. Standing only a few feet away from the door was Gerald. He wasn't alone. He was holding someone captive. Someone he knew. Someone the men knew was closest to the cat. Nitty. The boy swallowed as he looked over at the duckling, who nodded slightly, as if she was ready to make the move when he did. The boy took a deep breath. As he looked back, he was ready. He had to be. Please, the cat pleaded weakly, looking small compared to the man that was looming over him. Mr. A eyed him warily before glancing back at Gerald. Do it, the man said, getting a cold chuckle from Gerald, as the boy noticed the bush baby struggle weakly, hearing a sharp gasp, and the man prepared to do the worst. But before the man could do anything, the boy pushed the door open and lunged at the man, tackling him, forcing to let him let go of the small dagger. Wait. He was holding a sword before. Alright. And I just realized that doesn't make sense. He pushed the baby away from Bush baby. Stinger falls onto the ground, surprised but unharmed. What is the meaning of this? Gerald snapped as he pulled away from the boy, whirling around so that he was facing him. The boy noticed the duckling behind the man, running over to the others. The boy could see Martin was ready to blow down the man. Well, Stacy and Lizzie certainly had seen better days. The boy was relieved to see that they too were mostly unarmed. I'm wondering the same thing, Mr. A said coldly, and the boy heard a sharp gasp of surprise as Squishy cried out in alarm. The boy looked over to the children to see the man had grabbed the cat and held it tightly. The boy felt a wave of anger fill him as he looked between the men. Let him go, Mr. A, the boy said simply, extending his sword as he stepped closer. I'd do it if I were you, the man warned, narrowing his eyes, so that he was looking at the boy closely. You can't possibly think you can save everyone by yourself, can you? I'm not alone, the boy said defiantly. You can't win. The man laughed, shaking his head as he tightened his grip on the cat, struggling, gasping in pain, but going nowhere. The boy wasn't sure what he could do, what he should do. If he went to help Stampy, Gerald may take a chance to attack the bush baby, but if he stayed here... The boy looked down at Nettie, who managed to maneuver herself so she was lying on her back. Their eyes met, and the boy could see hope in her eyes. There was still fear, but it wasn't overwhelming. They would get through this. They had to. Okay. not going to answer that question. Because I choose not to answer that question. Okay? Sam looked back up at Mr. A, his hesitation evident to the man. The man smiled darkly as he took a step closer. You can see you're in quite a predicament, aren't you? How can you be so sure of that? The boy asked, raising an eyebrow. You don't know if I have a trick under my sleeve. The man laughed. Sure, but you couldn't possibly be prepared for everything. You sure about that? A voice said from behind the man. Mr. A gasped in surprise as someone struck him from behind. The man stumbled, letting go of the cat. Stumpy scrambled away from the man, and the boy could see a released Martin standing over the man, going to untie the cat's bonds. Oh, Mr. A stood up after a few moments, watching in disgust as the YouTuber helped the cat to his feet. You may have prevented it, but you can't get out of here alive, at least. Not all of you. Hello? The boy tensed at the threat, looking over at the duckling, who was helping the others sneak. Oof. Well, the boy tensed at the threat, looking over at the duckling, who was helping the others sneak toward the doorway. Squishy looked at him, meeting his gaze. The boy could see determination in her eyes. Determination, he understood. Nothing would stop her from getting their friends to safety. He could trust her. Well, it's doing a good job. Being very helpful. Look out, the cat cried suddenly, and the boy looked to his left to see Gerald lunging toward him, a sword raised. The boy blocked the weapon with his own just in time as he stopped it back. Get out of here, the boy shouted at the other two, seeing Martin knock back a furious Mr. A as they headed for the door. What about you? The cat asked. Oops. Excuse me. I'll be right behind you, the boy said, glancing down at the bush baby who was struggling behind him. I'm not going to leave anyone behind. Martin nodded, and he led the cat out of the room. As the boy pushed back Gerald, pretty soon Mr. A joined the boy. The boy managed to push them away from the bush baby. He even managed to kick the stray dagger in her direction, hoping she'd be able to get herself out safely. You really think you could keep both of us back forever, boy? The man sneered with amusement. The boy pushed Gerald back again, blocking another attack by Mr. A. Maybe I can. The boy said with a joke. After all, you're nothing compared to the other things YouTubers have seen. Is this so? The man asked, raising a curious eyebrow. Like what? The boy smiled, shook his head. And why would I tell you that? You don't want anything to do with them anyway. I want them dead. That's what. The man sneered. I don't care how I do it, so long as it gets the job done. Well, I guess it looks like I'm going to have to stop you, the boy said matter-of-factly, as he pushed back Mr. A and Gerald. Mr. A as Gerald lighted at him. The boy was holding his ground pretty well, much to the men's surprise. However, the boy wasn't sure how long it would last. He couldn't hold out forever. Can you be sure of that, Samuel? Mr. A sneered darkly as he lunged for another attack, and the boy shoved him back, turning to face Gerald, who had tried to sneak up from behind him. My name's Sam, the boy exclaimed, as he shoved Gerald back, knocking him against the wall. The man groaned as he struggled to get to his seat. But he didn't go far when there was a huge explosion overhead, and the boy scrambled back as part of the roof crumbled to the ground. He heard a gasp of pain as he watched in horror as Gerald was crushed under the rubble. That certainly was unexpected. The other man mused, somehow managing to escape the falling debris. The boy looked over his shoulder to find that Nettie had finally freed herself from her restraints and was getting to her feet, not sure what to do. Go find the others, the boy told her. I'm sure they won't be far. What about you? She asked, looking nervously over at Mr. A, who looked at the scene with mild amusement. I'll be right behind you, I promise, the boy said. Just need to make sure you can't stop us. She nodded her head as she went for the door, disappearing from sight as the boy turned back to the man. You are quite the protector there, boy, the man said with a chuckle. Letting your friend run off on her own like that? Just to deal with me. You would have tried to stop us, the boy said. I can't let you win. Can you? The man asked, raising an eyebrow. Before the boy could lunge at the man and attack, he heard a scream from down the hallway. Then the boy turned around, unsure of what he just heard. Should he have gone with her? Had something happened? Oh, don't look so startled, boy, the man, Mr. A said smoothly. I've ordered to be rid of her yet. The boy swallowed as he heard footsteps approaching. To his surprise and horror, he watched as a tall man who looked similar to Mr. A walked into the room, a struggling bush baby along the way. Let her go! The man pulled the bush baby tighter to himself, forcing her to stop struggling. She gasped in pain. Why would I do that? Mr. A mused with a smile. Nicely done, brother. It was my pleasure, the man said, replied simply. She wasn't that difficult to snatch. What about the other YouTubers? Do you know where they went? Mr. A asked. The other man shook his head. No, but I did send some men after them. I have no doubt they'll be found and recaptured in no time. No! The bush baby cried as she tried to squirm out of the man's grip. But the more she struggled, the more the man held tighter, threatening to hurt her if she didn't stop. You won't get away with this, the boy replied, braiding his sword higher. If you don't let her go, you'll regret it. I suggest you lowered your weapon, boy, the man said simply. He was thinner and paler than his brother, with more hollowed-out features. The boy had a feeling he knew who this man was. He sent shivers through his spine. He thought about what his brother had told him about this man. How he tortured a younger Levi years before. Was this really the same man? What did he want with his friend? What was he planning to do? Otherwise, she'll suffer far more than what I've planned. As for your friends, I'm sure they won't survive getting past us. Unless you surrender, then maybe we will let them through. Don't listen to him, Nettie cried. Just get out of here. Leave me. No, the boy said, shaking his head to give his friends, knowing that the men were wrong to underestimate him. But he was more afraid of them hurting the bush baby than anything else. He lowered his sword and looked at his friend, tears of pain, fear in her eyes. No one gets left behind. How amusing, Mr. A said from behind him. Fortunately for you, being a hero will cost you. He heard a shout of alarm from the bush baby. Before he could roll around, he felt a sharp pain in his head. He crumpled to the ground, hearing his friends screaming as he lost consciousness. The world went completely black. Plot twist! Chapter 26. Stampy ran through the woods, not far behind his friends, his mind racing as they went. He'd hated leaving the boy alone with those men, but he knew there was no other way. He knew the boy could handle it, especially where his sister was concerned. The boy would have never left her behind. Even though they could have taken her, there had been no time, especially since they were being pursued, forced to continue without their friends. He just hoped they would join up with them soon. Cat looked ahead of him to see that Martin and Squishy were helping Stacy and Lizzie through the woods as fast as they could. They weren't going as fast as the cat would have liked, but that was because his friends were more tired and deprived of food and energy that they needed. He needed to get everyone to safety before worrying about anything else. It would be what Sam would have wanted him to do. They rounded another corner, the dark trees surrounding them seeming to make the whole experience far more frightening than it should be. "I see the portal!" Stacy cried as she pointed ahead of them. "What about the others?" Squishy asked with uncertainty. "We can't just leave them here. We should wait for them." "And risk getting captured again?" Martin asked. "Those men know we're coming here. Besides, the boy knows plenty of places where they can be safe. He wouldn't let anything happen to them, and he wouldn't want us to put ourselves in more danger than we need to." "I agree," Kat said with a sigh. As they approached the portal, "I trust Sam. We all do. I know he'll be fine. He has to be." Squishy nodded nervously. "I just don't know. Sam is smart, but not everyone can be prepared for everything." "It'll be fine," Kat assured her. As he went over to the portal, full confidence in his tone, Lizzie nodded. "It's a lot like his mother in a way." She looked over at the cat and nodded solemnly. Sam's mother had lost her life trying to protect Lizzie from an attack that Mr. A's men were in charge of. The cat could understand the pain she was going through because of that. After all, he had lost Squid in a similar way. Squid had been trying to protect him when he needed him most, and lost him for it. Cat's thoughts were diverted when he heard an explosion not too far away. His guess was that one of the men had gotten too close to a creeper, which meant they were close. "Come on, we need to get out of here." "Where to?" Martin asked, looking over his shoulder nervously. "I'm not going to say it out loud." "Trust me when I say I have an idea." "I do trust you, Stampy," Stacy said with reassurance. "Come on," the cat replied quickly as he finished putting the coordinates, making sure his friends slipped in first. He looked behind him one more moment, hoping to see the boy coming through trees with his sister. To see Nettie was safe, but none of that happened. Took a deep breath, slipped through. He felt the sensation of falling as he slipped through, stumbling as he exited from the other side of the portal, catching himself before looking up to see his friends waiting for him. "I'm sure you want us to follow you?" Squishy asked without question. Cat nodded. "Probably the best idea. First, do you have any fireworks on you?" "Always," she nodded. "Why?" "Just in case." The cat said with a smile. She nodded with understanding, and the cat could see the others were evidently confused. He didn't have time to explain. He gestured for them to follow. They did so without question. It didn't take long before they could see the beginnings of his town ahead, which was a safe sign that they'd made it back to his lovely world. The sun was rising steadily. Morning had broken. It was the start of a brand new day, and he was exhausted. Had they really been gone for an entire night? It felt like they'd been in the other world for days. They walked through the town. The cat looked around them, alert and hopeful, not wanting there to be a surprise attack, especially if the men had been ordered to fetch them. But as for now, they had escaped. They were safe. He just hoped his other friends were just as safe. He took a deep breath as they rounded another corner. The cat knew that they were getting close to the house, but they didn't get far before he heard someone call out from ahead. The cat spotted someone running towards them, followed by another figure. "Jimmy?" Martin said with surprise, recognizing his friend before the cat did. The cat was amazed the YouTuber would be up on his feet soon after what had happened, but he assumed he was just worried about his friends. Who wouldn't be after what he'd seen? "Guys!" Jimmy said in relief as he caught up to them, looking at them each before looking back at the cat. "Where's Sam? Nettie? Did you get everyone?" They swallowed. "Kind of. Got separated." "Are they?" Nita asked, looking a little uneasy. "I'm sure they'll be okay," Martin said quickly. "What about you? How did you get here?" Jimmy managed a small smile to his friend. Long story. I'll tell you everything later. I couldn't agree more. Squishy said with a nod. You should be resting now. Jimmy shrugged. When I realized you guys had disappeared, I wanted to make sure you were okay. Cat looked over at William. We're caught up to that YouTuber, clearly keeping a close eye on his friend. We need to get back to my house, the cat replied. Be ready for anything, in case the men try to attack, which I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Jimmy swallowed. You sure we can handle it? Can. Squishy nodded confidently. Hopefully Sam and Nettie will find their way home soon. Yeah, the cat nodded, as he noticed the others, seeing just how spent Stacy and Lizzie looked. You two need to get something to eat. Both of them smiled and nodded as they headed back to the house. The cat couldn't help but feel a little uneasy as they went along. Even though the sun was rising and the world was getting brighter, he still felt it was still a threat. Still danger lurking behind the shadows. They couldn't escape fate forever. Especially not him. Those men wanted him dead. They would find a way to do it, no matter what. They arrived at the house, and the beaver opened the door for them. Full diamond armor. The cat didn't question the beaver's action. If he had full armor with him, he'd put it on as well. But he didn't. At least he knew that William would keep them safe. And the boy probably knew that too. The boy wouldn't stay away long if he knew his friends were in danger. Nor would he leave anyone alone. That was a need. Even if something did happen, he knew the boy could handle it. Cat stifled a yawn as he followed his friends up the stairs, seeing that the two girls were situated in bed before Squishy gave them some food. Martin practically dragged Jimmy to bed, smiling at the cat when he succeeded. It was a relief to see something go right for once. He had his friends back. They survived those men. They were free now from any fear or threat. Sure, the men were still out there, and their friends were and some of their friends were in a different world, probably being haunted by those men. But they would find them soon. He would have everything he ever wanted, what he needed, surrounded by friends who cared about him and were willing to protect him and each other against those men. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that it didn't seem right. Just too easy. He finally walked out of the guest room, followed by William as he went over to his bedroom, walking into it with full confidence. Sure, he'd been chased out of it hours before, but he wasn't afraid. Besides, William was not too far away. That's cool. I am. And no doubt he was doing what a boy would probably be doing if he were here now. You don't mind staying by my room today? The cat asked the beaver with hesitation. The beaver smiled and shook his head. He returned the smile. Thanks, really appreciate that. The cat walked over to his bed, sitting down on the covers, eyeing the hidden room warily, debating whether or not he should let someone know that they were safe, or at least someone know that his friends were out there somewhere. But who could he call? Eli? He was probably too busy. Rose? Also probably busy. After all, there were hundreds of other YouTubers out there who needed help as well. Suddenly, an idea came to him, and he took a deep breath, trying to bring up the courage to stand up and go into the room. Sure, William wouldn't be far, and he could see Barnaby sitting on his bed by the painting anyway. Nothing had happened to him to the extent of as last time without them knowing. He was safe. Gerald wasn't ready to attack at any moment. Mr. A wasn't waiting in the corner, finding a perfect moment to strike. Nor was RJ looking for a way to bring him down, or even threaten him. Even though he hadn't seen the man since he'd been given the shock collar, didn't mean that the man wasn't a threat. He very much could be. The cat stood up, looking around the room anxiously, before going to the hidden room, opening the door with the lever, and walking inside, climbing the ladder to space above his room. The cat climbed to the top. He could see the communicator waiting for him patiently, as if it knew he would be coming. Walked over to the communicator, finding the book which had coordinates written down. They'd been handy last time, and they would be now. Once he put in the coordinates, he would need to put the book away before sending a signal. For a long moment, nothing happened. All he could hear was static. Suddenly, there was a click, before he heard a voice coming through. Noticed the coordinates had changed suddenly to ones he recognized. "Hello?" the voice called. The kid said in relief. "I'm so glad to hear from you again." "So am I," the man said matter-of-factly. "Is everything all right? I noticed you tried to call me." "Yeah," the cat said with a chuckle. "How did you do that, though?" Dad chuckled. "I have my ways, Dampy, trust me." "I do," the cat said. "What have you been up to? Where are you?" Well, I'm still with some of your friends, the man said casually, purposely probably, sounding confused and protect his location. "Oh, right," the cat laughed. "I forgot. Is everything all right there?" "Yep, pretty much," the man replied. "What about you guys? Have you found the others?" "Yes, we did," the cat said confidently. "Good," the man said with a relief. "You're all safe, though, right?" The cat hesitated, not sure if he should tell the truth or not. Again, he was here to tell someone about what had happened. "We got separated. Most of us got here safely, but Sam and Nettie were left behind. I don't know if they got out or not." "Can you tell me where they're at?" the man asked. The cat told him, which seemed to satisfy the YouTuber. "So you'll look into it?" "I'll see what I can do," the YouTuber said. "I'll give you any updates when I find out about them." "Okay," the cat said, making a mental note to stay close to the communicator for the next few days, or at least have Barnaby stationed nearby to let them know when Dan was calling. "I could call you every night for updates if you like." "Unless it's urgent, I'll do that," the YouTuber said simply. "Stay safe, though, Stampy. It really isn't safe for you right now to do any building or playing games. At least, not at first." "Well, be careful," the cat assured him. "I know you will," Dan said. "I just don't want to see anything happen to you when..." "I doubt I'll be alone for a while now," the cat said with a small chuckle. "I'm okay with it, though I'd feel better knowing my friends are safe." "I'll let you know as soon as I can if anything comes up," the YouTuber replied. "Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate the help," the cat said with a relief. "I'm glad to be of help," the man said. "But if you do need help, don't hesitate to let me know. I have ways to get help to you if you need it." "I remember that," the cat said. "Be careful out there, Dan. I mean it." "Well, if you will," the man chuckled. "You're the one more at risk than I am." "Still, it wouldn't hurt," the cat said with a slight frown. "No, it wouldn't hurt," the YouTuber admitted. "See you soon, then, Stampy." "See you too," the cat agreed. Communicator disconnected the signal. The cat stepped back, feeling a little more at ease, knowing that someone was looking into it. Dan would make sure they were safe, and he'd find a way to help them if they needed it. He trusted his friend as much as he trusted the boy. Had to. What else could he do? The cat climbed down the ladder and exited the hidden room, closing the door behind him as he did so. He looked to see, to his surprise, Glacier waiting not too far away. "What were you doing up there?" she said with concern. "I need to let someone know that our friends were still out there," the cat replied honestly. "I know I could trust Sam to handle things, but I feel better knowing that someone is looking out for them." Duckling smiled sincerely as she went over to the cat. "I'm sure Sam will appreciate you doing that." "Yeah, he would have done it for me," the cat said quietly, as he walked over to his bed. "So what brings you here?" "I wanted to make sure you were okay," Glacier replied. "I am," the cat said. "See?" "Not just physically, Stampy," she added, hitting a curious eyebrow. "You've been through a lot, and you know it." "I know," the cat sighed. "Just don't want to let my guard down. I don't want to risk not seeing something that'll change everything. Might not be for better." "I understand that," the Queen said gently. The cat sat down on his bed. She went over to him and put a hand on his shoulder. "But we're not doing this alone." The cat nodded. No. She smiles genuinely at the cat swallowed again, finding it hard not to be reminded of the fear he felt before they had been rescued. Threats that still loomed over the longer his friends were out there. Still a risk. He wasn't sure he would be able to rest until they were back in his world, safe and sound. "You want me to stay with you today?" Duckling asked Stella. "No, it's fine. I'll be okay," the cat insisted. "You don't have to do that." She managed to smile. "No, I don't have to, but doesn't mean I can't if you need me to be here." "But what about the others?" the cat asked. "They'll be fine," she replied. "Your safety is just as important as those of our friends. But we'll find them. They'll get back to us, you'll see." "I really hope you're right," the cat said, letting out a sigh. "Try to get some sleep, Stampy. You need it," she said. You look just as tired," the cat pointed out. She laughed cheerfully. "I know, but I won't be far, don't worry." "I'll try not to," the cat said quietly, and he stood to pull the covers back, climbing in while the duckling was watching him. He climbed into his bed and pulled the covers over him, feeling the warmth embrace him as he did so. He felt safe under those sheets. Wasn't afraid of what was to come. Wasn't afraid about those men, or even the nightmares that came from time to time. He was happy. He was free. He was safe. What more could he want? Probably the safe return of his sister and friend. "Oh, why don't you look out that squish, you mainstream?" Probably the safe return of his sister and friend. But that too slipped away as he drifted off to sleep. His dreams, bliss and wonderful, a paradise he never wanted to leave. This was where he wanted to be, where he wanted his friends to be. Not separated by boundaries or worlds, or men who wanted to destroy them. It was as perfect as he could imagine. And could feel it. Yeah. Squishy might be streaming soon. Later. I don't know when. But, yeah. That's okay. Oh. Chapter 27. Should probably stop soon, but yeah. Sam woke up, finding himself on a cold, hard floor of a cell. The boy looked up to find that the room he was in was far bigger than the iron-barred cage he was trapped in. White walls surrounded him as he stood up, taking in the room around him as he did so. But it didn't take him long to realize he was alone in the room. Sitting only 20 feet from him against the wall was the bush baby. The boy swallowed as he went over to the edge of his cell, trying to get a better look. Gasped in horror when he noticed what was keeping her trapped by the wall. On her wrists were metal cuffs attached to the chains that were bolted to the wall. She didn't look to be in pain. Just seeing her there created a lump back his throat. What were the men planning to do with her? Did this have to do anything with it? Why was he trapped here? He wanted to break through the bars, free her from her restraints, and get as far away as possible, but he was strong enough to break through the bars. He was just a kid, sure, but he was good with a sword, but he couldn't help his friend, and what good was that? The boy watched his friend quietly, debating whether or not he should try to start a conversation. How long had they been here? Whatever became of Gerald? Was he truly gone? He wasn't sure. For all he knew, they were in the middle of nowhere, and no way to call for help to defend themselves. After all, he had been stripped of his weapons and any supplies he brought with him. The man must have taken the items off him while he was unconscious, just as helpless as his friend was. The boy closed his eyes, took a deep breath, not wanting to give up. After all, he had found a way to outsmart the men before, but without any way to break through the bars, and with the men in full control, he wasn't sure what he could do. He had to do something. Sam opened his eyes, surprised to see his friend, and made his eyes. She didn't smile. She also didn't look away. The boy could see the uncertainty and fear in her big, expressive brown eyes. He had done everything he could to help her, and still failed, at least for now. He wouldn't give up, but he couldn't. He wouldn't give up. He couldn't. Just seeing the way she was looking at him gave him the courage, determination to keep going. He made a promise. He was going to keep it. "How are you?" the boy asked simply to his friend, gripping the bars as she shook her head, stumbling to her feet, unable to go forward with the chains that were keeping her from coming any closer. That's all right." "I honestly don't know," she said, shaking her head again. "But at least they haven't done anything to us. Yet." "What do you think they're planning?" the boy asked, quietly, not sure if he wanted to know. "Something to do with these, I reckon," she sighed, shaking the chains in frustration. Finally, she looked at the boy, smiled sadly. "What about you? How are you feeling?" "I'm fine," the boy said. "Just have a little headache from when Mr. hit me." She nodded. "It hit you pretty hard." "Sorry I couldn't stop them," the boy admitted. "RJ came by surprise, and I had no other choice. I didn't want him to hurt you." She shook her head. "There's no need to apologize, Sam. You did your best. That's all I need from you. We'll get out of this mess. You'll see." The boy sighed and nodded. "But how? I'm stuck in this little cell where you're imprisoned by chains." She shrugged, looking away as she gazed towards the dark oak door that led to the outside, where the other men had to be, where they had come to decide their fates. "Have they said anything to you since we got here?" the boy asked her, breaking a little silence. She shook her head, looking back at him with a sad glance. "Nothing good." "Are our friends safe?" the boy questioned. She made a small smile. "Men haven't said anything that wouldn't suggest otherwise." The boy let out a relief sigh. "It's good." "Well," she said softly, "I don't know if the men are planning to attack them or use us to get to them like Gerald tried to do to me to get to Stampy." "Whatever became of Gerald?" the boy asked. "Is he really—" "No one could have survived something like that," she said with a sigh. "Even if he used an interprobe, he would have been crushed." "How did it happen?" the boy asked. She shrugged. "From what I hear, Creeper exploded on the roof while one of the guards were trying to coax it down. My guess, he didn't realize just how dangerous those things can be." Tim chuckled nervously, managing a smile. "Well, that taught him a lesson, at least." Wish Baby nodded. "But it's hard to imagine that the man is just gone. He's hurt Stampy so much. I'm not sure what he might think when he finds out. But we'll still have to deal with Mr. A and RJ," the boy reminded her. "From what I've heard, RJ is not a fun person to be with." "Was it Mr. A?" she asked, shuddering as she said it. The boy couldn't blame her. She had seen the harm the man had caused to her brother weeks ago, especially the nightmares that plagued him periodically in the night. "Afraid so," the boy said quietly, remembering Levi, who had never truly been the same when he had been tortured by RJ. He'd had a fear of clocks because of it. Clocks, slightly. Whatever the reason, it had been a good memory to remember. Sam couldn't imagine how Levi had managed to get through the last few years of school due to the clock, to a clock being in each of the classrooms. Yeah, there is a phobia for that. I can't remember it at the top of my head, but you can definitely look it up and see it. There is a phobia for that. Like, it was interesting. At least you're here, she said quietly. No one gets left behind, the boy said, repeating the words he had said however long ago. Had they been here for hours? Days? I wasn't sure. There was no windows, no way to tell where they were, what time it was, how long they'd been here. I'm glad, she said with a soft smile. Don't let the men tell you otherwise. You're a hero. I know we will get out of this. We have to. The boy nodded, noticing that she wanted to believe what she'd just said, as she wanted him to. It was hope. And he knew she needed that. All the YouTubers needed that. If there was no hope, there was no need to keep going. Fear can destroy their hope, no matter what the men thought. They would get through this. They would find a way. They had to. It felt like hours had passed since he had woken up to find himself in his cell, separated by the room where his friend was held. No doubt they were both restless, having no choice but to sleep on the floor. But even though he felt tired, couldn't sleep, couldn't help but look towards the door. After all, he knew it wouldn't be long before they'd find out what would become of them. The boy shifted his eyes from the door over to his friend. The bush baby was sleeping on the cold, hard floor, trying to find a comfortable position due to the chains that kept her where she was. Who would do something like this? Why? What purpose did these things have? And why did he feel so unnerved about them every time he looked at the cuffs? Because he knew both Levi and Dan had experienced similar instances of torture. This was something different. Something far more sinister. He didn't like it. What could he really do? The boy leaned his back against the wall, wanting sleep to come. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't sleep. He knew that those men were capable of doing anything. While he was trapped here, it would be a perfect opportunity for the man to attack his friends. He couldn't help them. Stampy did have the others, but those men were far stronger and more threatening after every encounter. No, he wasn't afraid of them. He just wasn't sure what they were planning to do. And that was what scared him. If he couldn't help Nettie here when she needed him, how would he be able to protect his friend when the cat needed him most? He wasn't sure. Not yet, anyway. As the boy sat there on the floor of his cell, struggling to sleep, he heard a sharp click on the door that led to their little room open. Okay. Sam looked over, and his blood ran cold as he saw RJ walking in, smiling down at the boy when he saw he was awake. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Samuel, the man said slowly. My brother has told me so much about you. He has? He has? The boy said with surprise, getting to his feet, trying to show the man that he wasn't going to be pushed around or contained by bars of iron. Indeed he has, the man said with a nod, before glancing down at the sleeping bush baby. Especially about her. She's close to Cat, isn't she? And why would I tell you that? You already know, the boy snapped. The man chuckled. He shook his head, approaching the boy's cell as he did so. Afraid I don't see the resemblance. Does there have to be one? You have to remember that my brother and I don't look exactly alike, and yet we're related. Ah, yes, the man said with a mean smile. But I'm afraid you're forgetting something. Something Mr. A wishes to use to his advantage. How exactly? The boy asked slowly. The man smiled coldly as he looked over at the bush baby, a look of hunger and desire in his eyes. You know how YouTubers have very connected friendships? Of course, the boy said, uncertain of what this man was trying to get at. Well, When it comes to the sibling relationship, there's something more intimate. There's a connection that's far stronger. You remember how your little friend suffered from the loss of its best friend? No thanks to you, the boy snapped. Ah, but I was the one to destroy him. The man smiled coldly. But perhaps you've heard what your friend has said? Have you not thought that we haven't done something like this before? The boy swallowed. Won't work. Tell your friend now when he finds out what happened to one of his closest friends. Sister, the man mused darkly. Once we destroy our victims from the inside out, there's nothing that will stop us from ending them. No, the boy said, shaking his head. You're lying. I'm not, the man said. Not this time, boy. Your friends may have survived for his near-death experience, but I know that losing someone he cares about most, or will crush him far more than anything that we've ever done to him. Boy tensed as he watched the man approach the sleeping bush baby, bored of him wanting to call out to her, to warn her about what was about to happen. He watched helplessly as the man knelt down to face the bush baby, gently shaking her awake. It was a firm gesture. Still surprised the boy. Sam watched helplessly as the bush baby stirred, opening her eyes to see the man looming over her. Her gasp of surprise amused the man as he grabbed her by the wrist and pulled her to her feet. What are you doing? The boy demanded. Let her go. What's going on? The man asked as he pressed her against the wall. She gasped in pain, struggling to pull away from him. Sam, what's going on? She asked, looking over at the boy. What are you going to do? Something you won't forget, my dear, the man said coldly. Took out a small device with a button in the center. Her eyes widened as she looked at it. Both she and the boy knew what it was for. Both of them realized what he was about to do. Fill the boy with anger. Can't do this, the boy shouted as he shook the bars in his cell. Fortunately for you, I can, the man smiled, looking into the frightened eyes of his victim. Since the shock collar wasn't enough, I had the symptom updated on the cuffs, making it far more painful and agonizing as possible. Pretty soon your friend faced some more fates. Oh, the bush baby said in a soft whisper, shaking her head as the boy swallowed. Where should we stop? The man mused, glancing over at the boy. If you enjoy what you're about to experience, don't you dare, the boy warned. What, bust through the bars and tackle me to the ground? The man laughed. You're nothing to me, boy, just as she is nothing to me. She is another victim that Mr. A has allowed me to torment, torture a long while. After all, I had the idea to use that shock collar on your bed months ago. Then why the long absence? Why show up now? The boy demanded. To complete what Gerald has started, the man mused. And far more. You won't get away with this, the boy said, gritting his teeth as he watched the man step back from the bush baby, making sure she could see the button, daring her to try anything. I think I will, boy, the man said with a small smile. This time you can't stop me. The boy watched in horror as the man pressed the button. Nettie screamed in pain as she collapsed to the ground, trying to yank the cuffs off her, but no matter how hard she struggled, she was no further able to free herself. No, the boy said, slamming against the bars helplessly as he watched the man torture his friend. Torture his friend's sister. And the thought of what the man had told him taunted him now, as he heard the bush baby scream, begging for the pain to stop, crying out for him to help her, but he was just as stuck as she was, forced to watch as one of the most infamous men tortured an innocent YouTuber. It was horrible. He hated every minute of it, but he was helpless to stop it, unable to intervene. It was one of the worst things he could ever see. He wanted to get his friend out of this. Forget all about it. Could he? There had to be hope. There had to be. For the both of them. Even when he heard his friend's screams fade into sobs before he drowned into silence. He knew that something had to be done. Otherwise, there would be nothing left to save. And how could he live with himself, seeing his devastated friend after he promised to help her? Promised himself to keep his friend safe. He didn't want to know. Chapter 28. Snappy woke up the next morning, feeling refreshed for the morning. He sat up in bed as he looked out of his bedroom to see it was indeed mid-morning. I said morning 3 times in that paragraph. 4 times. A perfect morning. Well, almost. He swallowed as he remembered what had happened the previous day, even the night before. Sam and Nettie were still out there somewhere. He didn't know where they were or what had happened. Were they safe? How long did he have to wait until he heard back from Dan? The YouTuber had been looking far and wide to make sure they were okay, but what if they weren't? What if they completely disappeared? What if something worse happened? He shook the thoughts out of his mind as he climbed out of bed and went over to the cake that had been waiting for him. He looked at it hungrily, not hesitating to eat it before he could think about anything else. He needed to do his morning routine first, before doing anything else. It would certainly help make things easier for him. Suddenly, the cat noticed Suckling was sleeping in a chair beside his bed. How hadn't he noticed her before now? He wasn't sure, but it was good to see her there. He wasn't alone. He did have some of his friends here with him. He wasn't sure for how long, but they were here. Most of them had made it out safely. He just hoped the boy and his sister were okay as well. He couldn't imagine what he would do if something did happen to them, and he had no control over it. His friends had already gone through enough, as it was anyway. He had gone through more than enough than he had ever had in a lifetime. Even was hit a target. He let out a sigh as he turned toward his balcony and opened the door that led outside. He felt a warm breeze wash over him as he stood by the fence, looking out into the world he'd come to know through the years of building and playing with both new and old friends. He couldn't help but smile sadly as he remembered those bittersweet memories. Most of them were good, but it would be moments he sincerely missed. But he was glad that he hadn't forgotten about his friends. Why would he ever want to? They changed everything for him, and they had a great time together. He did miss some of his friends, but he knew that he was happier knowing he did know them, but still wanted to know that his friends were okay, happy and safe. The cat closed his eyes as he tried to think about anything that he could do that wouldn't involve any building or playing games in his town or funland. Sure, he normally would do that, but wanted to keep Dan's warning in mind. His friend certainly knew more things about all of this than he did, and he had to trust him, even if part of him wanted to go and look for his friends himself. His mind wandered as he thought about all the fun he'd had with his friends. Remembered the laughs and conversations they'd had, where there was no Mr. A or his men to threaten them, no danger lurking within the shadows, ready to pounce at them in any suspecting moment, where they were safe, happy, able to be themselves. He wanted to have that again, but to be where he belonged, without the threat of being taken from it all. He needed his friends just as much as they needed him, and he enjoyed what he did have. Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by the sound of whining behind him. Cat looked behind him to see Barnaby, walking over to him, standing by his side with a look of determination in his eyes. Cat smiled, amused, and touched with the dog's gum and trying to keep him safe. "Did you sleep well, Barnaby?" Cat asked the dog. The dog barked, his tail wagging in excitement. The cat chuckled. "That's good. No news from Dan yet?" The dog lowered its head, not saying anything, and the cat could safely assume that the dog hadn't heard anything while he'd been asleep. That was good, at least, if it wasn't urgent enough to tell him as soon as possible. Then again, the dog would have woken him up if there was something important. It's okay. I doubted we'd get news that quickly anyway, the cat assured the dog. And the dog looked up at him, and the cat looked up at the cat and whined softly. His dark brown eyes soft and said, I know I miss him too. The cat said with a sigh, but I have to trust that my friends will find their way back. I'd feel better knowing that they were at least safe. The dog barked again and wagged his tail rapidly. The cat looked away from his canine companion to the blue morning sky. And again there were no clouds in sight. A perfect day in a beautiful world. It was home, but it was incomplete. At least it was for now. They stayed that way for a long moment, the cat's mind wandering as he thought about his friends. Anything that could be possible right now. Anything could happen between now and when he saw his friends again. But he hoped that it would be good. Had to be. Just seeing his friends coming home would be one of the greatest things he could imagine. He just had to picture it. He could just picture it. However, in the dark corner of his mind, he struggled to keep back the questions that scared him, the thoughts that seemed to be just as possible, just as real. He hadn't heard from the boy or Dan since he had gone to bed hours ago. In fact, the whole day and night had passed, and he still hadn't heard anything from them. Did he have a right to be worried? Ask questions? Even the scary ones? Could he really truly ask them without people telling him not to worry about it? He'd been trying to do that for hours, and even then it wasn't working out for him. There were so many unanswered questions, so many fears that overlapped each other. There was no easy way to get through the mess that he'd been by diving in deep. Could he do that? Was he strong enough for that? He had to be. He'd seen so much, witnessed so many things. He'd been tortured, betrayed, abandoned, imprisoned, and nearly killed, all because of what he was to Mr. A's men, or the cause. He was a threat, and so were his friends. No one was safe. Not forever, anyway. The cat let out a long sigh as he tried to sort through his conflicting emotions. He wanted so badly to be hopeful and eager for his friends to return, but he feared something far worse than he anticipated would happen. Something unthinkable and inconceivable to comprehend. But he wasn't scared of the men themselves, rather more afraid of what might they do if they got their way. It was confusing to feel both of these contradicting feelings at once, but it also made sense. He knew what he wanted, but he feared it might be taken away from him. He would be able to get back, just as he lost Squid. Cat swallowed, still pained at the loss of his dear friend. He could imagine something like that happening to someone else he was close to, like Squishy, or even Nettie. He wanted to keep them both safe, but knowing the bush baby was out there somewhere with men not too far behind scared him. Cheryl knew how close he was to her, and Mr. A knew as well. That was a danger for the both of them, and even though Sam was there to help her, he was finding it harder and harder to see how they could get through this on their own, especially if the men did whatever it took to get to them. He didn't want it to happen. What else could he do? Not much. The cat heard the dog whine again. The cat looked down at the dog. He looked concerned for his master and friend. The dog clearly sensed that something was wrong. That was the thing. He could never get past Barnaby without the dog seeing right through him. Just seeing the sad look in the dog's eyes made the cat's heart melt. I'm okay, Barnaby. Just thinking about things. The cat said with a sigh. The dog barked again, nudging the cat's leg as he whined softly. This brought curiosity to the cat. What is it, boy? Steppy watched as Barnaby sprung into action, running back to the cat's bedroom. Standing by the painting. It only took a moment for the cat to realize that the dog was trying to tell him. That dog! Without a second thought, the cat ran back into the room, closing the balcony door behind him as he ran over to the painting. You sure? The dog barked again, confidently, as the cat flipped the lever, even though he doesn't need to, preparing to ascend the ladder once again. Certainly was sooner than he expected, but if he was getting it now, then how could it be? His mind shook. She shook the thought out of his mind. Just because it was happening now didn't mean it wasn't good news. His friends could be preparing to go to the lovely world, and Dad would give him a heads up about it. He wouldn't know for sure until he went upstairs to hear from her himself. Boiling with nervous excitement, the cat climbed up the ladder, hearing the crackle of the communicator as it came up. "Hello, is anyone there?" Dad's voice called out at last. "I'm coming," the cat called as he rushed to the communicator. "Sorry you had to wait so long." "It wasn't bad, Dad. It wasn't too bad. Don't worry about it," he persisted casually. "So, is everything all right? Do you know what became of my friends?" "Yes and no," the man said nervously, totally unsure of what to say next. "What do you mean?" the cat asked. "Well, we did find the place where you guys had been taken. There were no signs of anyone being there, and on a close inspection, I fear that perhaps they didn't make it out of there on their own." "What?" Kid asked with surprise. "Sorry, Stampy, but I feel Mr. A might have taken them to get his last revenge on you," the man said. "No," the cat whispered in disbelief. "It can't be." "We'll find them, Stampy. I won't rest until we do," the man said matter-of-factly. "Truly, I'm sorry." "It's not your fault. It's just," the cat said before trailing off. Finally, he replied, "I just hope those men don't hurt them." "Me too," the man said. "Just trust me, Stampy." "I do," the cat said. "But I'm still scared for them." "They'll get through this. We all will," the YouTuber replied. "I hope you're right," the cat said. "Me too," the YouTuber said. They said a few final words before the signal was disconnected. The cat was still shocked by the news. How could this be possible? Where were his friends now? What were the men doing to them? What was the man doing to them? Would they be able to find them in time, or would it be too late? Was it already too late? He didn't know. He didn't know anything. He was helpless to do anything about it. What if he could do nothing? What if he truly was the weak and vulnerable cat his men thought he was? Who his friend had given his life for? The thought of not knowing the answers to all those scary questions frightened him most of all. He hated it. But what more could he do? Oh. Chapter 29. I'm debating whether or not I should stop now, or I know I should stop soon because my voice is getting there. Don't want to stop quite yet, though. A few days had passed since the boy and his friend had been imprisoned. Well, it felt like it had been weeks for the boy, due to the fact that they had no way of knowing how much time it was passing. The boy had watched as RJ returned again and again to torment the bush baby, causing her more and more pain every visit. He had been unable to stop any of it. In fact, his attempts of trying to get through to the man only seemed to be making things worse for his friend. The boy leaned back against the wall of his cell, closing his eyes to try to block out the images of the men looming over his friend. Her cries and screams of pain as he pressed the button, causing her to squirm and rise in pain. Hearing her screams was probably the hardest thing he'd had to go through. But once they got out of here, that man would regret ever laying a hand on her. He was sure of that. In the midst of his anger, he felt sadness wash over him. He'd seen Stampy after nearly being nearly killed by the shot caller. He'd seen him when Mr. A had tortured him in such a horrible way, and he'd watched as his friend had mourned and grieved after the loss of Squid. No doubt his friend would be terrified of the thought of someone else he cared about being tortured like this. That there was a looming threat hanging over their heads. Something didn't happen soon. His friend would face serious consequences. He would never forgive himself as anything happened to the bush baby. The boy opened his eyes again and looked out of the cell and looked over to where Nettie was lying. She was on her side, careful not to disturb her bonds. She finished it slightly. Tears still ran down her face, but they weren't as fierce as they had been hours earlier. The pain had subsided to a certain extent, but it was more bearable if she was careful. But the boy could tell just by looking at her pale face that she wouldn't be able to hold it any longer. Nettie, the boy whispered softly, and he came closer to the bush baby as far as he could due to his confinement in the cell. He waited until she looked up at him, brown eyes looking pained and sad. "How long do you think we have?" she asked, her voice shaking from pain and fear. "How long do you think I have?" "Get out of this," the boy promised her. "It has to be a way." Tears formed her eyes. She shook her head. "You shouldn't have seen this. You should have just gone with the others. You should have—" "No," the boy said simply. "I'd rather know you're going through this than have no idea what at all. I'm here to help you. You need me here. But Stampy needs you. You're his protector," she said. "Finally, not mine." The boy managed to smile. "I know. You're my charge, Eddie. I'll do whatever it takes to protect you." "But you're still trapped in that cell," she said softly. "How can you help me?" "There has to be a way," the boy insisted. She looked around the room. Suddenly he noticed a chest in the far corner of the room. "Do you know what's in that chest?" "Well, mostly your things," she said with a shrug. "Plus some food for us. And that's what RJ's been willing to give us, Eddie." "Could you try to get to it?" the boy asked. "If you could get to something that could break the bars, maybe we'll have a chance to get out of here." Her eyes sparked with hope, but it was only there for a moment before she looked down at the coughs. "I'm not sure I'll be able to get that far." "Just try it," the boy suggested. "You can stop if it gets too much." She nodded, but she stumbled weakly to her feet, straining toward the chest. But the boy could see that she was right. No matter how hard she pulled and pressed, she couldn't get any closer to the chest. She tried a few more times before giving up defeat on her expression. "Don't worry about it," the boy told her. "Someone has to be looking for us. Certainly Stampy would have let someone know we hadn't come back yet." "Really?" she asked, looking back at him hopefully. "You know him better than I do," the boy said with an amused smile. "True," she agreed, turning to smile. "Just hope they do find us before." "Me too," the boy said quietly. "RJ and his brother will certainly regret what they did to you when we get out of this. I don't think they will regret it," she admitted. "You saw how much that man enjoyed torturing me." He saw her wince, as if the memory pained her. Sam desperately wanted to go over to her and give her a hug. He was sure that she wasn't alone, and yet she hadn't spoken much about the fear and pain that undoubtedly haunted her. He had heard her waking up screaming a couple nights before, from a horrible nightmare. Was it a couple of nights ago? He couldn't be sure. "I'm here if you need me. Remember that," the boy replied. "I'm here to listen if you want to talk about it." She nodded, sitting back down at the floor, leaning back against the wall. "I know. It's just not sure why they're doing this. They wanted to make a big point. Why don't they just kill me in front of my brother?" "As good of an idea that is. There's a far greater reasoning in our plans," a voice said from the doorway. "After all, Sam will certainly have to spill the news once you're dead and he's free." "That's not happening," the boy snapped at the bush baby, gasped in fear. The man was near as dead the boy as he approached the bush baby. Grabbing her, she cried out in pain. "You can stop me, you? You're trapped in that cell, unable to save anyone, not even her." Bush baby screamed when the man pressed the button that had suddenly appeared in his hands. The man held her tightly to him, keeping her from struggling as tears formed in her eyes. Anger sparked in the boy's eyes as he stood up, gripping the bars, causing the man to laugh. But the boy spoke calmly and firmly, looking the man straight in the eye. Sobs from his friends reaching his ears. He felt his heart break from the sound. She was so much pain, going through so much torment, suffering far more than anyone should. You know that I'm not the only one who's the biggest threat here. Threat? You threat? The man snorted with laughter. You're nothing but a nuisance, boy. Once I'm finished with her, I'll have a full pleasure in tormenting her brother as I relay him about everything I've done before ending him as well. No! Nettie screamed, trying to yank herself from the man, horrified by what the man had said. Threat angered the boy even more, but need to remain calm. You need to be patient. You won't even get a chance to get to him, I said confidently, especially if he's surrounded by friends. A distraction isn't all that difficult to do, the man said casually. His tears fell down the bush baby's. She was far from frightened, not just for herself, but for her friend, her brother, Stampy. I have a feeling they won't be easily fooled, the boy said, as the man scowled at his words, tightening his grip on the bush baby, cried out in pain. The man pressed the button again, trusting the voltage, and way Mr. A had all those months ago. As far as that play came now, he did not want to play anymore. Not if he meant losing his friend. But at least I'll be the one who will remind him of what I did to his little friend. The man mused. Just a Gerald was, but squid. You underestimate us, the boy pointed out. Dumb boy like me can stop you. A girl stopped me, Samuel. Your aunt was around your age when she charged into my place and attempted to rescue her brother's friend. Her friend, the man scowled. Don't tell me I'm underestimating you. That's why you're in that cell. And that's why I'm making you watch as I destroy this little life you promised to protect. The boy heard the bush baby gasp again as he tightened his grip around her, blocking her airway. The man didn't shock her first. He certainly would suffocate her. Let her go, RJ, the man said sternly. Or what? The man taunted. He raised the button. Bush baby closed her eyes, losing consciousness, strength. The boy feared that it might already be too late. There's nothing you could do to stop me now, boy. Nothing. I wouldn't be so sure of that, a voice said from overhead. The boy looked up, seeing, to his surprise, someone jumped down from the roof, tackling the man as they smashed the button that caused his friend so much pain. Rose? The boy asked in shock as he watched his aunt thrust the man to the ground, and the anger and rage in her eyes softened when she looked in his direction. Do you really think I have the right? You have the right to drop on me like that? The man said coldly as he stood up before his aunt could do anything say anything to the boy. It's not like I haven't done it before, RJ, she said confidently. I assure you, if you don't surrender now, you will face far more punishment after all. The people you've tortured. The man managed a crooked smile, glancing over at the bush baby, who was unconscious on the floor, having collapsed to the ground when Rose had attacked him. Hello. That's rather unfortunate, the man said, extending his sword, especially when I have the last word. The man lunged for the bush baby as the boy shouted. Rose lunged at the man, grabbing him by the arm, and she thrust him backward toward the door. The man stumbled before gasping in surprise, falling to the ground as another figure stood over the man, fist clenched, as he went to make sure the man was out, coming towards the boy. Eli? The boy asked, surprise still in his tone. You didn't expect to find you two, didn't you? The man said with amusement. I was hoping someone would, the boy said. The man stood in front of himself, but I didn't expect this. The man chuckled as he took out a pickaxe and broke through the bars, letting the boy walk out. Sam looked over to where Nettie laid, noticed that Rose had unclasped the cups and were tending to her injuries. The boy rushed over, kneeling down as he looked over his friend, making sure she was okay. You look tired, Sam, Rose replied softly, after the boy sighed in relief, glad to see his friend was okay. Nettie didn't fare much better, the boy admitted. That man hurt her. I know. Rose nodded, shaking her head. She'll get through it. You both will. Yeah, the boy said, nodding his head. What's going to happen to him now? Probably negating the fate he deserved months ago, she replied. I couldn't miss a perfect chance of capturing him. RJ was doing far more things to hurt people than you know. See that? I nodded. But this will be the last one, right? I hope so, she replied. And she nodded over at Eli, who had taken the opportunity to grab RJ and lift him over his shoulder. We won't be hurting anyone anytime soon. But he deserves it, the boy said, just like Gerald did. What do you mean? She asked with an inch of curiosity. Gerald's gone, the boy replied, killed by the rubble of a creeper explosion. Yikes, that's a fun way to go. That's no fun way to go, she said, wincing. You sure? Positive, the boy nodded. You agree if you saw it yourself. He had no time to react, no time to save himself. He was crushed within seconds. There's nothing any of us could do about it. She nodded. Stampy would certainly love to hear that. Sam managed a sad smile. Still, Mr. A is still a threat. We need to get back to the lovely world and make sure he's safe. You're sure? She asked quietly. I'm not sure she'll be strong enough to get through. I won't let anything happen to her, the boy replied. I won't let anything happen to Stampy. Jay threatened him. No doubt after Mr. A figures out what happened, he'll want revenge. I'll make sure I want to be there just in case something does happen. All right, she said with a smile. Then we'll get you there. Really? The boy asked, as he looked down at his friend. He trusts you more than he does anyone else, she replied. I have no doubt you'll do the best to keep him safe. Sam noticed a hint of urgency in her eyes, a hint of recognition and understanding. The boy understood. There was something she knew she was telling him. But he didn't want to ask. He had more important things to worry about. One of them was getting Nettie back into the living world safely. Let's go. The boy said as he stood up, followed by his aunt. The boy hesitated before bending down and lifting the bush baby into his arms. She was so much lighter than he'd expected, but just seeing her sleeping peacefully, his nervousness. They could do this. They had to. They were so close, seeing their friends again. He just hoped it wouldn't be too late. We're almost there. Chapter 30. Okay. This will probably be the last chapter for now. Maybe I'll go a little longer. But then maybe I'll stop here because, like, I don't know how many chapters there are. And then, yeah. Stampy couldn't believe just how much time had flown since he'd heard the news of his friends' disappearances and potential capture. So much had changed, and everything seemed to be going all over the place from there. Jimmy, Stacy, and Lizzie had recovered from all their conditions and were able to return to their world safely to ensure that they were a little bit safer, since there was less of a threat coming for them. He was just glad that no one had been waiting for their worlds to ambush them. But he still hadn't heard from Sam or Nettie yet, which worried him considerably. They had finally gone back to their daily routine of building and playing games, but it didn't feel the same. Sure, he did manage to distract himself for a while, but he would always feel guilty about it afterwards. Okay. I just don't want to lose my voice. Just don't know how long my voice can hold it, but we'll see. The cat couldn't help but Feel like his friends needed help, needed them. But what could he do? He didn't know where they were or what had become of them. He didn't even know where to start. Again, Dan had made it pretty clear that he didn't want him to go looking for them. The YouTuber wanted to make sure he was safe, and putting himself at risk could put his friends in even more danger. Not that the cat agreed with him, but he knew that Sam would rather know he was safe than putting everyone on the line to get them back. As much as he hated it, he knew Dan was right, still. He wanted to do something to help, but all I could do was wait and hope. He was having a hard time doing that. As it was, the cat let out a long sigh as he shook his head, trying not to think about the surprised expression on his friends' faces when he told them that what he'd found out. None of them could believe it, but they were still hopeful. He wanted to be too. Just, he didn't want to get his hopes up too high and expect something from the boy that he might not be able to provide. After a long day of building, the cat was now sitting in his room, not sure what else to do as he watched the sun set on another day. With no signs of his friends, Dan had given him the same answer, that he was looking. There were no news to share, no updates. The longer they didn't hear anything, the more uneasy he felt. What if it was already too late? What if they were gone? Would he even know that? The uncertainty of all of this was one of the worst things he could ever go through. His friends were in danger. He couldn't help them. He felt helpless and alone, vulnerable in a way he'd never been before. Men knew his weakness. They knew what would bring him to his knees. So why hadn't he heard from them yet? Why hadn't the men attacked them? They could have, if they were really looking for them. They already knew where they were. What were they waiting for? Did Mr. A want with his friends? It's him that were taking his friends from him and threatened to take them forever. Could he stop him? Would he ever win against him? The cat let out a long, frustrated sigh, not sure what to do with all the thoughts that played through his mind, over and over again, like a broken record. The awful images, his friends being tortured, threatened, or worse, frightening enough. But there were dark thoughts looming in the back of his mind, thoughts he'd heard many times before, from both Mr. A and Gerald, trying to break him, crush him, destroy him. Was he trying to do that with his friends? Was he trying to remind him that he couldn't win? That he was nothing compared to them? Was he? No. He was stronger, braver, more capable to stand up to those men. He would fight for his friends, if that's what it took. But what could he do as of this moment? Fight back against his past memories of pain and abandonment? Would every victory bring about more strength and confidence in him? To overpower the men, or to outsmart them and ensure that they could never hurt him again? Again, they did have Niddy and Sam. He couldn't bear knowing something had happened to them. Maybe the men knew that. Maybe the men were planning something far bigger than he realized, to finish him once and for all. Perhaps not literally, but through pain and grief. He'd already lost Squid. Could he bear to lose someone else he cared about? Tears stung in his eyes as he pushed them back, struggling against the thoughts that swarmed around his mind. Sam might not be there to prove them all wrong, but he did have his friends who would support him, even in his struggle. He looked over at where Barnaby lay in his dog bed, chilling out calmly as he usually was. The dog looked up when he caught the cat watching him. The cat swallowed and spoke softly to his companion. "Can you get Squishy for me? I need to talk to her about something." The dog barked obediently and stood up, disappearing from sight. The cat knew the dog was going to find his friend. Even though Martin was just as good, he needed to talk to someone who knew him, really knew him. He needed support to keep going, to stay strong, because no matter how hard he tried, he just couldn't do it alone. "Stampy?" Squishy's voice asked as the door opened, and the cat looked to see that both the duckling and Martin walked in with the dog at their heels. Is everything alright? I'm not sure, the cat sighed. So much is on my mind, and it's just hard to fight them sometimes. Like your nightmares? She asked, sitting at the chair by his bed, while Martin went to lean against the wall, looking intrigued. The cat didn't mind him being there. It was good to see both of his friends here. Kind of. They're just scarier, the cat sighed. Memories of the lies those men told me to try to hurt me. Lies that I'm struggling to fight back. Have you told anyone about it before? Have you told anyone about it before? Martin asked, speaking for the first time. I told Sam, the cat told him. He was really supportive about it and told me. It proved to me that each and every one of them were wrong. So why are you having trouble with them now? The duckling asked softly, taking one of the cat's paws in her own. A gentle gesture, and that helped make things a little bit easier. He knew he could trust his friends. He did too. Those men threatened to take everything from me, the cat whispered softly. They managed to take Squid from me. I'm afraid that they might try to do it again. You know we won't let that happen. We will know you won't let that happen, Duckling replied. I know you wouldn't let it happen, the cat said, nodding his head slowly. That's probably why he's making it so hard. We don't know what to expect, what to prepare for. It could be already too late. It's not, Stampy, the duckling said gently. I know it. They're still out there. Oof. That's unfortunate. They're still out there, still fighting. They're strong. They'll find a way out. And they'll pull through. I just feel so helpless not being able to do anything to help, Ken insisted, looking away from his friends as he looked out his window. I know. I feel the same way, Duckling said. You're not going through this alone. Why haven't they been found yet? What's been taking so long? The cat asked, frustration spilling out of each question. I don't know, she said. But you can't lose hope yet, Stampy. The cat swallowed. I just want to know they're safe. But those men aren't hurting them to get to me. Hurting them to hurt me. But whatever those men said to you back then, they're wrong, Martin said, understanding in his eyes as he continued with his firm tone. And they still are. You're worth it. They're worth it. And we'll get them back. You're stronger than those men think you are. You know what matters to you. And you'll fight for what's right, no matter what. Exactly, the duckling agreed. You've done that with his doctor many times. And I didn't have much of a choice. He wants to steal my dogs and create a dog army to take over the world. Because Martin Rennish smiled. There's no different here. Mr. A is willing and capable of taking everything from you. Your friends, your world, even your own life. Don't let him. Got swallowed, seeing the man's foot. Took a deep breath, nodded, wiping a straight tear from his eyes. Am I strong enough to face him? Can he even be stopped? I'm sure of it, Martin told him with a nod. We just need to wait for a perfect opportunity to destroy every foundation he's standing on. See how he likes it. Cam hit a soft chuckle before letting out a sigh. How long do we have to wait until we hear any more news of their friends? Hopefully not long, the duckling replied. But we'll be with you every step of the way. We care about you, Stampy. We need to be strong for our friends. To show that man he didn't win. That he didn't crush you. That he got back up again. He didn't win when Gerald took Squid's life. And he won't win now. Squid knew what he was fighting for. And would have done the same. If given the same chance again. I really miss him. I miss all of them. Squid would be proud of you, what you're doing right now, Martin said. Speaking of your hiding things from people. Cat laughed. Sam knew from the very beginning, ever since Gerald started accusing me. Even when Mr. A nearly killed me twice. Even when Gerald imprisoned me for a whole week before I escaped. Protected me, even though he didn't have to. He saved me. And he's certainly going to be doing that for Nettie, Martin said. Nothing will stand in the way of him and his friends. You're right, Cat nodded, feeling the new kind of confidence fill him. Truly is a hero. I couldn't agree more, Stampy, Squinch said with a smile. You'd know better than anyone. The cat chuckled. At least I have you guys. I know I could trust you with anything, even my life. Just as I would with my helpers. I'm glad, Squishy said, coming to give the cat a hug. The cat returned their embrace, feeling happier and safer, knowing he'd done the right thing. He needed to be reminded that he had friends supporting. That friends supported him and went to the end. Don't let me forget this, the cat told her softly as he pulled away from her. I won't let you forget, Stappy, she said, even if I have to tell you 1,000,000 times until you believe it. The cat grinned and nodded. Good. Good, because I need to be reminded. Otherwise, it'll be hard doing this on my own. You're not doing this alone, she said with a smile. And the cat could see Martin nod in agreement. We're here for you, every step of the way, Steppy. Sam knows that, and he'll do that for Nettie until she returns safely here. We're here for our friends, because it's worth it. It is worth it. Our freedom and happiness are within reach. Here goes the plug-in. Finally. I'm reaching, the cat said quietly, smiling as he said it. So am I, she said in reply, looking over at Martin until he said the same, just knowing that brought him courage, strength to keep fighting. Knowing his friends were right. Mr. A and his men had no control over him. They couldn't hurt him unless he let them, and he'd do whatever it took to make sure his friends were safe. He'd prove that man was stronger, braver, and willing to do the right thing, no matter the cost. Just like Sam was willing to do for his sister. He wouldn't let anything happen to her, just like he had for him. And it was the reassurance he needed. The boy knew that more than just how to use a sword and make a cake. He knew how to be a good friend, a useful ally, as well as a dangerous enemy. Nothing else would ease his uncertainties. This certainly would. It was hope, and he needed to keep hold on to it for as long as he could, because he needed to do the right thing, no matter what it took. Sam to do his part to protect his sister, to do the right thing, no matter what it took to protect them. I'm messing up. To protect them, to do the right thing, no matter what it took. There we go. Alright. The boy walked through the same woods that separated the place where they had been imprisoned and to the portal that his aunt was leading him to. The boy walked slowly, so not to bother his friend, who slept soundly as he carried her. But just knowing that they were getting further and further away from the place that had caused his friend so much pain was a huge relief. He still had so many questions he wanted to ask so badly. He looked over at his aunt, who was walking boldly and alertly. No doubt she was determined to get them safely to where they needed to go. He just hoped the men wouldn't try to attack them when they were so close to freedom. Oh, there goes the air conditioning. It didn't take long before his aunt met his eye. Her fierce green eyes full of kindness and concern. Nothing like the anger he'd seen with RJ. RJ had tried to end his friend's life. No doubt he didn't want to get on her bedside, and RJ knew that. If not back then, he did now. She wouldn't stop until those she cared about were safe. That wasn't just him. About all the YouTubers that needed her were people she wanted to protect. She'd seen so much, especially after watching his mother die in front of her, protecting Lizzie all those years ago. She was determined to do whatever it took to protect those who needed it. She was grateful for that. And he was grateful for that. Sorry. She was one of the strongest people he'd ever met, and he looked up to her for that. What's on your mind, Sam? She asked gently, noticing the boy look away from her and staring ahead. Not really, the boy admitted simply. You can tell me, she offered with a small smile. They were mostly just questions, the boy shrugged. Like, how you found us. So she smiled sadly. That's a pretty interesting story, indeed. Dan told me what happened to you guys. Eli and I went to go see what happened. I never stopped looking for you and made sure people took the time to take notice. When I found where you two were, I got Eli and we went to help. Couldn't have come in at a better time? You couldn't have come in at a better time, the boy said with a slow smile. I'm sorry I couldn't come any sooner, she said with a sigh. I was so trying as hard as I could. Maybe if we found you sooner, she wouldn't have endured so much pain. Hey, I had to watch it happen, the boy pointed out. I couldn't do anything to stop it. I wanted to, though. I know you did, she said with a smile. But you'll be able to help her now, and your other friends now. They need you. You're not going to stop me? The boy asked. Why would I do that? It's your choice, she said matter-of-factly. The boy laughed, no doubt agreeing with her. His aunt had fought for his right to choose from his dad. His father even hid a very dangerous sign to try to keep him from going. But it all changed when he disappeared, and the man had realized his mistake. He even had a choice in the lovely world, something the cat valued for everyone. He even had to target him Viva Dash. They chose to betray him, to attack him, and to try to steal his dog and create the evil dog army. They chose to try to take over the world, but failed each and every time. Ha! Plot twist. It had always been a choice, no matter what it was. Who it was. It was an intriguing thought, but it was undoubtedly true. The cat hit the target. How far do we have to go yet? The boy asked her, as he heard his friend groan softly, stirring slightly before drifting off to sleep. Not far, she assured him. You'll be back before you know it. Don't be so sure about that, a voice said suddenly from behind them. They whirled around, and the boy saw a man in Mr. A's usual uniform, looking bold and determined. What makes you so sure of that? The boy snapped, taking a step back, debating whether or not he should run for it. He would need to get a sword as soon as possible, because if they were attacked again, he needed to defend his friend. Maybe you should be asking Mr. A about that, the man sneered. He certainly wouldn't be pleased to know about what you did. And so what? The boy asked. What does that have to do with us? You'll never understand, boy, the man warned. Mr. A doesn't appreciate your constant intervention, and he wants to make sure you can't escape. You're returning with us, or we'll make you. Us? Indra asked, raising an eyebrow. Where are your other companions? Men just stood around him. Show yourselves, men. Sure enough, the boy watched as men stepped out of the trees, swords extended. The feeling of uneasiness filled him. His aunt extended her sword, standing tall as she faced the man straight out. I'll ask you once and only once, the man said with a small smile. Send it, or I'll ensure your friends get far worse treatment. You're not going to get to any of them if I can help it, boy's aunt said defiantly. And why should I be afraid of you? The man scoffed. You'll see soon enough, she warned, before glancing at the two of them. Go. I'll hold them back as long as I can. Be careful, the boy said with a nod. I will be, she nodded, as the boy turned and ran as he heard shouts and cries of pain behind him. He didn't bother looking behind him. He didn't dare. He needed to get the bush baby out of here. He needed to get her someplace safe. The boy kept running, holding his friend tight as he kept going. As he noticed the trees beginning to stay, they were getting close. They had to be. He pushed harder, trying to ignore the pain he felt, and sighed as he pressed on, gasping for air as he broke through. He broke through the trees, finding the portal not too far. He stumbled over it, laying his friend down as he went over to the portal to check on its coordinates. He looked around cautiously as he set the destination to the lovely world, checking once more to make sure it would go where it intended to go. Suddenly, the boy heard a cry of fear as he whirled around to see what the man from earlier was looming over the bush baby, grabbing her by the wrist as he pulled her to her feet. He had somehow managed to slip by his aunt and was now hurting his friend, intentionally or not. "Let go of her!" the boy demanded as he charged with the man. He stopped in his tracks when the man extended his sword and bended it against the bush baby's throat. Gasps of pain and fear softening the quiet whimpers. "Sit," the man said with a soft smile. "There's no reason to rush, boy, especially if it might risk your friend's life." Oof. Oofity oof. "But doesn't Mr. A want her alive?" the boy asked sharply. The man shrugged. "To be honest, so long as he can prove a point, he doesn't care. So that means I have the right to do whatever I want to this little one." "Please don't," she whimpered softly, too exhausted to struggle, too weak to fight back. "Please do." "Creepy," the man corrected, as he adjusted his grip on her. "Yeah, where are we? Oh, yes. I wasn't making you watch as I hurt your little friend here." "Not if I can help it." A shout came from behind the man, as the boy watched in surprise as Eli tackled him, making him release the hold on the bush baby as she fell to the ground. Eli pulled the man away from her as they fought. The boy ran over to her, meeting her pained eyes just so. "Are you okay?" the boy asked softly. "I don't know," she admitted. "Where exactly are we?" "Almost home," the boy told her with a smile. "Beat it, Eddie. We're almost there." "What about RJ?" she asked. "Mr. A, RJ won't be hurting you for a while now," the boy said. "I don't know where Mr. A is planning, but we're ready. We'll be ready when he strikes." She nodded. "I hope you're right." "I am," the boy said. She looked up to see the man starting to overpower the leader of the cause. Eli caught him staring and commanded him to go while there was still time. The boy swallowed, nodded as he looked at his friend. "Come on, we need to go." "I don't know if I can," she said with uncertainty. "I'll be right here with you," the boy replied, wrapping his arms around her as he helped her up. "I won't let those men hurt you again." She smiled sadly, shook her head. "I'm not the only one who needs that." "I know," the boy replied. She nodded. "Trust me, Eddie. We'll get through this. We have to." She nodded again as they began to walk towards the portal. Just as they were a few feet away from it, they heard a scream. Bush baby gasped with horror. She turned to see what had happened. The boy followed her gaze, turned her head away gently, so she didn't have to see it. Light was lying on the ground, covered in blood, with the man standing triumphantly over him, preparing to finish the man that had saved so many lives. Swallowed as they slipped through, hearing his friend's soft sobs at his shoulder. But he didn't mind, just thinking about what the man had sacrificed. He'd given them a few precious moments to escape. Moments they needed, if they were to get somewhere safe and find the others. He wouldn't forget that. None of them would. Whoa, I'm still silent. Things are about to get chaotic now. Chapter 32. Stampy spent the entire day with his friends, finishing another build in the town. While they were at it, it did distract him temporarily from the realities and questions he faced, not knowing what was happening to his friends. Were they still imprisoned by Mr. A and his men? How long would it be until someone found them? Was anyone even looking? No, of course someone was looking. Dan certainly was, and the cat knew he would have told him as soon as he found and rescued them. But the not knowing was still hard to take. But at least he wasn't doing it alone this time. He was... Yeah, pretty much. Very much saw the whole sentence there. He was walking back to his house with his friends as the sun began to set as another day passed. Peaceful silence. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know what's going on. A peaceful silence that you could hear surrounding them. What? Oh. Fortunately, we're gonna have to end there, because I don't want to interfere with Squishy, and I'm pretty sure her stream's gonna be fun. So, yeah. Maybe we could wait for a couple minutes until she starts streaming and do a raid? Eh, probably not, because we don't have that many people here, so. We're gonna end that here. A raid would be nice if we had more people to raid. Yep. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will reread chapter 32 when we start again, and we're going to finish to the end. That I know for sure. It might be a shorter stream than usual, but we'll do it. Yep. So be sure to hop over to Squishy's stream, and I'll see you there in a bit. I suppose. Maybe, because I need to eat something, so. Yeah. Yeah, we all had fun. Yep. We'll get this done next stream. And then I'll have to do the short stories. And then we read book 4, which is the final book. And then we have books, short stories for that. And then after the books. Like, yeah, I have books after the books. I have stories after the books because, yeah. There were some YouTubers I couldn't add. I'm still trying to find a short story I can do with Pat and Jen. I've done one with Stacy and somebody else. I've done that with Lauren and Yami, so their appearance will happen until later. Yeah. So yeah, I've done certain stuff. I've done certain different characters. And someone did mention Danny being a short story. Like, hey, if you wanted to, I could get him into a short story. Somehow. Yeah, I would just have to find out how. I have an idea forming in my mind. It'd be interesting. Very interesting. But yeah. Because being a YouTuber, like I could even put myself in my own story. Because I'm a YouTuber. But I don't need to. Because I'm already in the story. Sorry. I should probably end the stream there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you whenever the next one might be.